Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the endless Pacific, where ancient Polynesian navigators sailed by starlight, weaving a web of islands across an ocean vast enough to swallow whole continents. Imagine you're on a beach in the Marquesas Islands, around 1000 CE. The sand's warm, dusted with crushed coral, and the air carries the sweet tang of frangipani. Waves whisper against the shore, and above, a sky bursting with stars glitters like a cosmic treasure map. These wayfinders didn't have compasses, charts, or even a decent weather app, yet they sailed thousands of miles to places like Hawaii and Aotearoa. You're about to join them, but let's be real, you probably won't survive this without a serious craving for fish and a neck cramp from stargazing. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're drifting off from. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing there, barefoot, the sand shifting under your toes. A double-hulled canoe bobs in the shallows, its twin hulls lashed with coconut fiber ropes that creak softly. Behind you, the village hums kids chase crabs, women weave pandanus leaves, and an elder's low chant names the stars. These Polynesians weren't just sailors, they were the original multitaskers, blending astronomy, storytelling, and sheer guts to conquer the Pacific. Mainstream history agrees by 1200 CE. Polynesians had settled nearly every speck of land in the Polynesian Triangle, a region spanning millions of square miles, from Easter Island to New Zealand. That's like colonizing the moon with nothing but a wooden boat and a good memory. You crane your neck, and the stars feel alive, pulsing in patterns you're supposed to learn. The Milky Way, or the great fish of the sky to the locals, arches overhead like a glowing river. Wayfinders memorize stars like Sirius and the Southern Cross, using their rising and setting points to plot courses. You spot Sirius, winking like it knows you're out of your depth. Here's a quirky tidbit: some navigators claim they could feel a star's position even under thick clouds, like they had a built-in cosmic radar. Historians still argue whether this was a real skill or just a flex, but you're starting to think these folks could have taught Einstein a thing or two. A breeze rustles the palms, and you pull your bark cloth wrap tighter. The beach is alive with prep for a voyage. Carpenters shave wood with adzes, their rhythmic scrapes blending with the waves. You're the village gopher, hauling water in a gourd, and you're not thrilled about it. You mutter about needing a union, but there's a thrill in the air. Wayfinders were heroes. Their knowledge passed through chance, not books. You overhear one, a wiry guy with tattoos curling like waves up his arms, pointing at the Pleiades. He says they mark the sailing season. You nod, but it's like trying to decode quantum physics with a coconut shell. Let's talk star paths, because this is the heart of it. Wayfinders didn't just follow one star, they tracked sequences, like celestial road signs. Aldebaran rises east, pointing to Tahiti. Vega sets west, guiding towards Samoa. You repeat the names, feeling like a kid cramming for a test. Joke number one if you flunk this: you're not lost, you're just exploring the Pacific forever. You smirk, but the stakes hit you. One wrong turn, and it's just you, the sharks, and an eternity of waves. You shuffle toward the canoe, your gourd sloshing. The hulls are smooth, carved from breadfruit trees, and the lashings look like they could hold a house together. Polynesians used no nails, just cordage so tough it laughed at storms. You're impressed, then trip over a root smooth move. Joke number two at this rate: you'll be the voyage's comic relief. You dust off and notice the wayfinder's chant growing louder, a steady hum that makes your eyelids droop. He's naming stars, winds, currents, weaving them into a story that's half map, half lullaby. You sit on a log, the firelight flickering. The wayfinder's voice is hypnotic, and you get why this worked. Navigation wasn't just math, it was memory, rhythm, community. You picture modern sailors freaking out over a dead battery and chuckle. These guys would have sailed circles around them. You learn about dead reckoning, estimating position by speed and time. You imagine counting waves like a nerd with a vendetta. It's tedious, but it kept them alive. The Southern Cross catches your eye, its tilt showing latitude, or so the Wayfinder says. You squint, trying to keep up. Joke number 3 if you master this. You're basically the Polynesian Neil deGrasse Tyson. You laugh, but the kids nearby are staring at the Wayfinder like he's a legend. You get it. He's not just steering a boat. He's carrying the village's dreams. The Pacific's a beast, but he's got its number. You lean back. The sand cool now. The stars seem to hum with the chant. Each one a guide, a story, a promise. You're not a navigator yet, but you're hooked. The village is settling, the fire crackling softly. You feel small, but part of something huge, like the ocean itself. The Wayfinder's chant fades, and you stretch, ready for what's next. The canoe's waiting, the stars are bright, and you're starting to believe you might just survive this. You're back on that Marquesan beach, the stars still blazing overhead. But now your attention's on the canoe that's going to carry you across the Pacific. The air's thick with the scent of freshly cut wood and sea salt, and your hands are still damp from hauling water gourds. Yep, you're still the village errand kid. The double-hulled canoe looms in the shallows, its twin hulls curved like crescent moons, lashed together with coconut fiber ropes that look like they could tether a whale. You're about to help carve and build this thing, and it's no IKEA flat pack. Every cut, every knot has to be perfect, because out there on the open sea, there's no roadside assistance. You wipe sweat from your brow, already feeling the weight of the task, and wonder if you can sneak a nap in the shade. Spoiler, you can't. The canoe's the heart of Polynesian navigation, a marvel of engineering that let these wayfinders conquer an ocean bigger than most planets' egos. Mainstream history confirms that double-hulled canoes, called wahakaulua in Hawaiian, were the backbone of Polynesian voyages, some stretching over 2,000 miles. These weren't flimsy rafts, they were floating villages, carrying up to 30 people, food, animals, and plants to start new colonies. You run your hand along the hull, smooth as a polished stone, and marvel at how something so simple could be so tough. You're starting to think your modern kayak would cry in shame. You grab an adze, a stone tool tied to a wooden handle, and join the carpenters. The lead carver, a guy with calluses thicker than your ego, shows you how to shave the breadfruit log. You swing the adze, and chips fly. But your first cut's wobbly great. You're sculpting a canoe that looks like modern art. Joke number 1 if this boat sinks. You're blaming it on abstract design. The carver chuckles, but his eyes say, "Don't mess this up, I kid." You focus, mimicking his steady rhythm, and soon the wood starts to cooperate. The hull's taking shape, curved to slice through waves like a hot knife through taro. Here's a quirky tidbit: some canoes were blessed with a fishbone charm tucked into the prow, supposedly to charm the sea gods. Historians still argue whether this was pure superstition or a psychological boost for nervous crews, but you're not complaining anything to keep the sharks at bay. You glance at the carver, who's muttering a chant as he works. It's not just about cutting wood, it's about respect for the tree, the sea, the journey. You try chanting too, but it comes out like a bad karaoke session. The carver doesn't laugh, though, which you take as a win. The double hull design is genius, and you're starting to get why. The two hulls, spaced about 6 feet apart, give stability, so you're not flipping over when a rogue wave hits. A platform spans the gap, where you'll store food, sleep, and maybe argue about who's snoring loudest. You help lash the crossbeams, twisting coconut fiber into cords that bite into your palms. The knots are intricate, like macrame on steroids, and you're mildly proud when your first one holds. Then you notice the women weaving pandanus leaves into sails thick, golden mats that catch the wind like a dream. You're tempted to ask for a weaving lesson, but your hands are already screaming. You step back, wiping sawdust off your face. The canoe's maybe 60 feet long, built for speed and survival. You learn that Polynesians chose breadfruit or koa trees for their lightness and strength, sometimes felling them with fire to save effort. You picture yourself swinging an axe at a massive tree and immediately regret volunteering. Joke number 2, if you chop down the wrong tree. You're not a carpenter, you're a landscaper. You snicker, but the carver's glare keeps you focused. He points out where the outrigger will go, a smaller float for extra balance, though Marcassan canoes often skipped it for speed. You nod, pretending you're not overwhelmed. The village is a hive of activity now. Kids haul smaller logs, elders inspect every knot, and you're still dodging crabs that seem to have a personal vendetta. The canoe's not just a boat, it's a promise, a bridge to new islands, new lives. You learn that some canoes carried sacred cargo plants like taro and breadfruit, or even chickens clucking in woven cages. You imagine the chaos of a mid-ocean chicken escape and shudder. The carver tells you about the talking wood, a belief that the tree's spirit guides the boat. You're skeptical, but don't argue. Last thing you need is a haunted canoe. You're sweaty, your arms ache, and the sun's climbing higher. You help hoist a crossbeam, grunting as it slots into place. The carver shows you how to test the hull's curve, running a palm along it like it's a living thing. You copy him, feeling the wood's warmth, and for a moment, you're not just a gopher, you're part of this. The canoe's starting to look like it could actually float, which is a relief, because you're not a great swimmer. You glance at the sea, sparkling under the morning light, and feel a mix of dread and excitement. This boat's your ticket to the stars, but it's also a reminder of how small you are. The women bring over a finished sail, and you help stretch it across the platform. It's heavy, woven tight, and smells faintly of earth. You learn that sails were sometimes dyed with turmeric, a golden splash against the blue sea. You picture your canoe looking like a floating sunset and grin. The carver's chanting again, and you try to match his rhythm, your voice soft and shaky. It's calming, like a lullaby, and you realize this is why Polynesian stories feel so sleepy. It's not just the facts, it's the flow, the cadence, the way every task feels like a ritual. You sit for a break, gulping water from a gourd. The canoe's maybe half done, but it's already impressive. You learn that some voyages took months, with crews rebuilding parts of the boat mid-sea. You're not thrilled about playing shipwright while dodging waves, but you're starting to respect the grind. The carver points out a star, low on the horizon, and says it's the anchor star for your destination. You squint, trying to burn its position into your brain. Joke number 3, if you forget that star, you're not navigating, you're just vibing. You laugh, but the carver's steady gaze reminds you this isn't a game. You stand, stretching your sore back. The beach is quieter now, but the work goes on. You grab the adze again, ready to carve another plank. The canoe's taking shape, and so are you. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're learning what it takes: patience, precision, and a lot of calluses. The stars are still up there, waiting, and the sea's calling. You're not ready to sail, but you're ready to build. The canoe's your foundation, and you're starting to believe it might just carry you home. You're still on that Marquesan beach, the half-built canoe gleaming in the morning light, its twin hulls starting to look like they might actually float. Your hands are raw from twisting coconut fiber ropes, and you're pretty sure you've got sawdust in places sawdust shouldn't be. The air's warm, heavy with the scent of wood shavings and blooming jasmine, and the village hums with quiet purpose carpenters carving, women weaving, kids darting around like over-caffeinated squirrels. You're no longer just hauling water. You've been promoted to apprentice star nerd, which means you're sitting cross-legged in the sand, trying to cram a sky full of constellations into your brain. The Wayfinder, that tattooed guy with the calm of a Zen master, is your teacher, and his voice is so soothing you're fighting to stay awake. You're learning the star paths now, the celestial playlist that'll guide you across the Pacific, and it's like memorizing a cosmic Spotify queue with no skip button. The star paths are the backbone of Polynesian navigation, a system so sophisticated it makes your high school geometry class look like finger painting. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders memorize sequences of stars, hundreds of them using their rising and setting points to navigate from island to island. You're staring at the sky, where the sun's just dipped below the horizon, leaving a twilight glow that makes the stars pop like fireflies. The wayfinder points to Arcturus, a bright dot climbing east, and says it's your guide to Hawaii. You nod, but your brain's screaming. That's a lot of pressure for one shiny speck. You're supposed to learn dozens of these, each tied to a specific route, like cosmic breadcrumbs leading to Tahiti, Samoa, or Tonga. You shift in the sand, a pebble digging into your thigh. The wayfinder's chanting a star path, his voice low and rhythmic, like he's rapping the universe's oldest mixtape. You try to follow Arcturus to Hawaii, Vega to Samoa, Sirius to Fiji. It's not just names, it's angles, timings, and stories woven together. Here's a quirky tidbit: some wayfinders use star couples, pairs of stars that rise or set together as a kind of celestial power couple to double-check their course. Historians still argue whether this was a standard trick or just a flex for the overachievers. But you're imagining stars flirting across the sky, and it's honestly adorable. You scribble the pairs in the sand with a stick, then realize you're drawing heart's focus. You lovesick apprentice. The wayfinder hands you a coconut shell filled with water and tells you to keep listening. You sip, the water cool against your parched throat, and try to lock in the chant. The star paths aren't random, they're mental maps, built on years of observation. You learn that Polynesians divided the sky into houses, each star having a home where it rises or sets. You picture the sky as a giant neighborhood, with Sirius living in a flashy penthouse and some dimmer star stuck in the suburbs. Joke number one if you mix up their addresses: you're not navigating, you're just crashing cosmic house parties. You snicker. But the wayfinder's raised eyebrow says, "Get serious, kid." You're starting to get it, though. The chants aren't just mnemonic devices, they're stories. Each star tied to a myth or a hero. Arcturus, for example, is linked to a tale of a voyager who outsmarted a storm god. You lean forward, elbows on your knees, as the wayfinder describes how the hero used the star to find a hidden island. It's like a bedtime story, except the moral is don't drown. You're hooked. But your brain's a bit fried. There are over 150 stars in a typical wayfinder's repertoire, plus backups for cloudy nights. You mutter the names under your breath, feeling like you're studying for the SATs of the sea. The village is settling now, the firelight casting long shadows. You help stack some wood scraps, your arms aching from yesterday's canoe carving marathon. Remember that adze you swung like a wannabe lumberjack? Your hands still hate you, but you're proud of the hull's smooth curve. The wayfinder calls you back, pointing at the Southern Cross, its 4 stars tilted like a kite. He says it's a latitude marker, shifting as you sail south. You squint, trying to burn its shape into your memory. You're not sure if you're more impressed or terrified, probably both. You learn that star paths aren't just about direction, they're about timing. Wayfinders knew when stars rose at dawn or set at dusk, syncing their voyages with seasonal winds. You picture yourself as a cosmic weatherman, predicting monsoons by starlight. It's exhausting, and you're tempted to ask for a coffee break, but coffee's not invented yet, so you settle for another sip of coconut water. Joke number 2. If you oversleep and miss a star, you're not late, you're just island hopping freestyle. You chuckle, but the wayfinder's calm stare reminds you that freestyle navigation means a one-way ticket to nowhere. The chant shifts, and you're introduced to zenith stars, ones that pass directly overhead to mark an island's latitude. You try to visualize it, imagining a star beaming down like a spotlight. The wayfinder says Rapa Nui has its own zenith star, and you feel a pang of awe. These guys weren't just sailing, they were hacking the universe's code. You scratch another star name in the sand, your stick snapping great. Now you're littering. You brush it away, hoping no one noticed. The wayfinder's too busy chanting to care, and you're grateful for his focus. You're getting better at this. Though you repeat the star path for Tahiti Aldebaran, then Procyon, then a dimmer star you keep forgetting. The wayfinder corrects you, his voice gentle but firm, and you try again. It's like learning a song, except the stakes are higher than karaoke night. You picture modern navigators glued to their GPS screens and smirk. These Polynesians would have laughed at a recalculating route error. You're starting to respect the oral tradition, how every chant carries centuries of trial and error, mostly error. You bet. The night's deepening, and the air's cooler now. You pull your bark cloth wrap tighter, the sand chilly under your feet. The wayfinder's chant is a steady hum, and you feel your eyelids droop. This is why their system worked. It's not just knowledge, it's rhythm, repetition, a lullaby for the brain. You learn that apprentices trained for years, sometimes decades, to master this. You're barely on day one, and your head's already swimming. Joke number 3 if you graduate. You're not a wayfinder, you're a walking planetarium. You grin. But the kids nearby are staring at the wayfinder like he's a superhero. You get it. He's not just teaching, he's passing down a legacy. You lean back, the sand cradling you. The stars seem to pulse with the chant, each one a guide, a story, a lifeline. You're not ready to sail yet, but you're starting to see the sky differently. Not just pretty lights, but a map you can trust. The wayfinder finishes his chant, and the village grows quiet. You stretch, your back creaking, and glance at the canoe. It's waiting, half-built, a reminder of the journey ahead. You're tired, but you're hooked. The stars are calling, and you're ready to listen. You're still on that Marquesan beach, the stars now high and sharp, like diamonds scattered on black velvet. The canoe's silhouette looms nearby, its hulls half-carved, a silent promise of the voyage to come. Your hands are still sore from twisting ropes and swinging that adze. Yep, you're still not a master carpenter, but tonight, you're leaving the wood shavings behind. The wayfinder's got you focused on the ocean itself, teaching you to read its waves like a book written in ripples and swells. You're sitting on a smooth rock, the sea lapping at your toes, and the air's thick with salt and the faint hum of the village winding down. You're learning to navigate by feel, not just stars, and it's like trying to understand a language spoken by water. You rub your eyes, already wondering if you can sneak a nap. But the wayfinder's steady gaze says, not a chance. Apprentice, the ocean was the Polynesians' highway, and reading its patterns was as crucial as memorizing star paths. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders used wave swells long, rolling patterns shaped by distant winds and islands to steer across thousands of miles. You stare at the water, its surface glinting under the moonlight, and try to spot these swells the wayfinder's describing. He points to a gentle rise, a swell moving steadily from the southeast, and says it's a sign of land far beyond the horizon. You squint, feeling like you're trying to read hieroglyphs in a funhouse mirror. The swells subtle them, but once you see it, it's like the ocean's whispering directions. You shift on the rock, a crab scuttling past seriously. These guys have it out for you. The wayfinder's voice is calm, almost hypnotic, as he explains how swells bend around islands, creating shadow zones of calmer water. You picture yourself out there, feeling the canoe's sway, using these patterns to find a speck of land in a sea that's frankly rude for being so big. Here's a quirky tidbit: some wayfinders claim they could sense swells by lying on the canoe's platform, feeling the ocean's pulse through their bodies. Historians still argue whether this was a real skill or just a way to catch a quick nap. But you're imagining yourself sprawled out, pretending to navigate while snoring. You grin. But the wayfinder's not amused. He kneels beside you, pointing at the water. See the cross swells, he asks. tracing where two wave patterns intersect, creating a choppy grid. You nod, though it's like spotting a needle in a haystack of foam. These cross swells, he says, come from different storms or islands, and a good wayfinder can untangle them to plot a course. You try to focus, but the waves are mesmerizing, their rhythm lulling you like a lullaby. Joke number one, if you zone out now, you're not navigating, you're just vibing with the tide. You chuckle, but the wayfinder's pointing at another swell, and you snap back to attention. You learn that swells aren't random. They're shaped by trade winds, monsoons, and even underwater reefs. The wayfinder describes how a swell bounces off an island, sending a faint echo back toward you. You picture the ocean as a giant pinball machine, with islands as bumpers and you as the confused player. It's mind-boggling. But Polynesians mastered this, sailing to places like Rapa Nui without so much as a compass. You're starting to respect the water, not just for its beauty, but for its secrets. You dip your hand in, the water cool against your palm, and try to feel the swell's rhythm. Spoiler, you feel nothing but wet. The wayfinder stands, stretching, and you follow him along the shore. He's teaching you to spot wave stars, reflections of bright stars on the water's surface, which can guide you when clouds hide the sky. You glance at Sirius, its light dancing on the waves like a tiny beacon. It's beautiful, but also a reminder that you're still a rookie. You try memorizing the swell pattern southeast for Tahiti, northwest for Hawaii, but your brain's starting to feel like a soggy sponge. The wayfinder's patient, though his voice a steady drone that makes you want to curl up in the sand. You pause to pick up a shell. Its spiral smooth under your thumb. The wayfinder's talking about current tongues, strips of water that flow differently, like rivers in the sea. You learn that Polynesians could spot these by color or temperature, steering along them like cosmic highways. You're impressed. Then remember, you're supposed to be learning this too. Joke number two, if you mess up, you're not lost, you're just exploring new currents. You smirk, but the wayfinder's pointing at a ripple, and you try to focus. It's like reading tea leaves, except the tea is 1,000,000 miles wide and doesn't care if you drown. The village is quiet now, the firelight dim. You're back on your rock, the wayfinder sitting beside you. He's describing how swells change with seasons, how a good wayfinder knows when the trade winds shift. You picture yourself out there, months from now, feeling the ocean's pulse like a second heartbeat. It's daunting, but you're starting to get it. The waves aren't just chaos, they're a map, a story, a guide. You lean forward, elbows on your knees, and watch the swells roll in. The wayfinder's voice is a soft hum, and you feel your shoulders relax. You learn that some wayfinders use stick charts, woven palm fronds mapping swell patterns, though Mark Sanz relied more on memory. You picture yourself trying to weave one and immediately tangling the fronds, yeah? You'll stick to chanting. The wayfinder's describing a voyage where swells led to a hidden atoll, and you're hooked. It's not just science, it's art, intuition, a dance with the sea. You glance at the canoe, its hulls catching the moonlight, and feel a flicker of pride. Remember those ropes you twisted. They're part of this now, holding the boat that'll ride these swells. The night's deep, and the air's cooler. You pull your bark cloth wrap tighter. The sand chilly under your feet. The wayfinder's teaching you to feel the canoe's motion, how it responds to different swells. You imagine lying on the platform, the wood creaking, the waves rocking you like a cradle. It's soothing, and you realize this is why Polynesian navigation feels so sleepy. It's built on rhythm, repetition, a connection to the world's pulse. Joke number three, if you fall asleep now, you're not lazy, you're just practicing for the canoe nap. You grin, but the wayfinder's steady gaze keeps you grounded. You stand, stretching your legs. The ocean's still whispering, and you're starting to hear it. The swells, the ripples, the star reflections, they're not just water. They're your guide. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're learning to trust the sea. The wayfinder claps your shoulder, a rare gesture, and you feel a spark of confidence. The canoe's waiting, the stars are watching, and the waves are ready to teach you more. You glance at the horizon, a faint line under the moonlight, and take a deep breath. You're ready for the next lesson. You're back on the Marquesan beach, the night air cool and heavy with the scent of salt and crushed coral. The canoe's still there, its half-finished hulls glowing faintly under the starlight, but your focus is elsewhere now. You're kneeling in the sand, surrounded by woven baskets, gourds, and piles of taro roots that look like lumpy potatoes with a superiority complex. The Wayfinders tasked you with packing provisions for a month-long voyage, and it's like preparing for the world's worst camping trip. No convenience stores, no Wi-Fi, just you and the Pacific's endless blue. The village is quiet, save for the soft rustle of palm fronds and the occasional cluck of a chicken in a cage. You're sweaty, your knees ache, and you're pretty sure you just saw a crab steal a piece of dried fish rude. This is about survival, and you're learning that every item you pack is a bet against the sea's bad mood. Polynesian voyages were logistical marvels, and provisioning was a science that kept crews alive across thousands of miles. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders packed calorie-dense foods like taro, breadfruit, and coconuts, often fermented or dried to last weeks without spoiling. You're holding a taro root, its rough skin scratching your palm, and wondering how anyone turned this into a meal. The wayfinder's sister, a no-nonsense woman with a braid down her back, shows you how to peel it, her knife flashing in the firelight. You try, and your first attempt looks like a toddler's art project. Joke number one: if you keep carving like that, you're not cooking. You're creating taro abstract expressionism. You laugh, but her raised eyebrow says, "Focus, or we're all eating your mistakes." You move to the next basket, stuffed with dried fish wrapped in banana leaves. The smell's intense, like a fish market decided to throw a party in your nose. You learn that Polynesians preserved fish by smoking or salting, packing enough protein to keep the crew from turning into grumpy skeletons. You stack the bundles carefully, trying not to gag, and notice the wayfinder checking your work. He's not just worried about food, he's calculating weight, balance, and space on the canoe. You picture the double-hulled boat you helped carve, its platform crammed with supplies, and feel a pang of responsibility. Those ropes you twisted better hold, or this taro's going swimming. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews brought live chickens, tied in cages, for fresh eggs or the occasional feast. Historians still argue whether the chickens were more trouble than they were worth. Imagine the squawking during a storm, but you're picturing a mid-ocean chicken chase, and it's comedy gold. You glance at a cage nearby where a hen glares at you like you owe her money. You mutter an apology and move on to the coconuts, which are basically the Swiss Army knife of provisions water, food, and even fiber for rope. You crack one open, the sweet water splashing your face, and take a sip. It's refreshing, but you're still not sold on drinking tree juice for a month. The wayfinder's sister hands you a gourd, sealed with a wooden stopper, filled with fermented breadfruit paste. It smells like sourdough's weird cousin, but she says it's a calorie bomb that'll keep you alive. You pack it carefully, learning that Polynesians used fermentation to preserve food long before hipsters discovered kombucha. You're impressed. Then fumble the gourd grate. Now you're the guy who almost spilled the crew's lunch. You recover, tucking it into a basket, and move to the water gourds. These are heavy. They're woven slings digging into your shoulders as you haul them to the pile. You're starting to realize that every drop counts when the nearest freshwater is 1,000 miles away. You pause, wiping sweat from your brow. The wayfinder's chanting softly, a prayer to the gods for a safe journey, and you're roped into joining. You kneel beside him, the sand cool against your shins, and mimic his words. It's a plea to Tangaroa, the sea god, for calm waters and friendly winds. The chant's rhythm is soothing, like a heartbeat, and you feel a flicker of calm. Polynesians believed the gods watched every voyage, and offerings coconut shells, fish, even a lock of hair were common before departure. You toss a small shell into the waves, hoping Tangaroa's in a good mood. Joke number two: if he's not. You're not praying, you're just bribing the ocean. You smirk, But the Wayfinder's solemn nod keeps you grounded. You're back to packing now. Sorting tools, fish hooks made of bone, nets woven from hibiscus fiber, and a stone adze for mid-sea repairs. You remember swinging that odds during the canoe build and wince at the memory of your sore arms. The Wayfinder says every tool has a story, like the hook carved from a turtle shell that supposedly caught a legendary fish. You're skeptical, but pack it anyway, better safe than cursed. You learn that crews also brought planting stocks, like taro shoots and breadfruit saplings, to start gardens on new islands. It's not just a voyage, it's a mission to spread life across the Pacific. You're awed, then drop a sapling smooth move. Farmer? The firelight flickers, casting shadows on the baskets. You're packing pandanus mats now, thick and waterproof, to shield supplies from rain. The women who wove them are chatting nearby, their laughter soft and warm. You try folding a mat, but it's like wrestling a stubborn yoga mat. The Wayfinder's sister shows you the trick. Her hands quick and sure, and you manage a decent fold. You're proud, then realize you've still got a dozen more to go. You sigh, your back creaking, and keep at it. The provisions are piling up: food, water, tools, plants, and you're starting to see the canoe as a floating ark, ready to carry a whole culture. You learn that crews rationed food carefully, eating raw fish or soaked taro to stretch supplies. You picture yourself chewing slimy fish under a stormy sky and shudder. The Wayfinder says hunger was a test of discipline, and you're already failing by dreaming of pizza. You pack a final basket, this one filled with medicinal herbs: kava for calm, noni for wounds. You're curious but not brave enough to taste the noni. It smells like regret. The Wayfinder's chant grows louder, and you join in again, the words feeling less foreign now. It's a prayer for strength, for the crew, the canoe, the sea. You feel connected, like you're part of something bigger than this beach. The night's deep, the stars brighter. You're exhausted, your hands smelling of taro and fish. The provisions are nearly ready, and you glance at the canoe, its hull's waiting to carry this load. You're not sailing yet, but you're starting to understand the stakes. Every basket, every gourd, is a choice: life or death, hope or hunger. You stretch, the sand cool under your feet, and feel a spark of pride. You're not a Wayfinder, but you're learning to prepare like one. The sea's out there, vast and waiting, and you're almost ready to meet it. Joke number 3 if you survive this. You're not a sailor, you're a professional snack packer. You grin, ready for the next step. You're kneeling on that same Marquesan beach, the sand now cool under your knees as the night deepens. The stars are still blazing, a cosmic map you're barely starting to understand, and the canoe's silhouette looms nearby, its hull's packed with the taro, fish, and gourds you wrestled into place. Your hands smell like fermented breadfruit, and you're pretty sure you've got a splinter from stacking those pandanus mats great. You're a walking snack bar with a side of wood shavings. Tonight, though, you're not packing or carving. You're joining the Wayfinder in a ritual, chanting prayers to the gods for a safe voyage. The village is hushed, the firelight low, and the air carries the weight of anticipation. You're about to ask for divine Wi-Fi to get through this ocean, but instead, you're learning to plead with Tangaroa and his crew of sea deities. The Wayfinder's voice is a steady hum, and you're trying not to trip over the words like a nervous karaoke singer. Polynesian voyages weren't just about skill, they were spiritual journeys, steeped in rituals to honor the gods who ruled the sea and sky. Mainstream history notes that Polynesians offered prayers and sacrifices before every major voyage, believing deities like Tangaroa, the sea god, could make or break their journey. You're sitting cross-legged now, a small pile of offerings before you, a coconut shell, a fish wrapped in Thai leaves, and a braid of your hair. Yep, you're parting with a lock to sweet-talk the gods. The Wayfinder's chanting a prayer, his voice weaving through the night like a thread, and you're supposed to echo him. Your first attempt sounds like a cat stepped on a conch shell, but he's patient, guiding you through the rhythm. You shift, the sand gritty against your shins. The chant's about gratitude for the stars, the canoe, the swells you're learning to read. You remember those wave patterns from the last lesson, how they whispered directions like the ocean's gossip. Now, you're asking the gods to keep those swells friendly? The wayfinder places the fish in the waves, a gift to Tangaroa, and you watch it bob away, hoping it's enough. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews offered tattoos as prayers, inking their skin with patterns to honor the sea. Historians still argue whether these were spiritual or just a way to look cool while fishing, but you're picturing yourself with a shark tattoo and feeling oddly tempted. You shake it off. Focus. Apprentice. The fire crackles, casting shadows on the wayfinder's face. He's describing Tangaroa's moods: calm one day, stormy the next, and you're starting to think this god needs a chill pill. You learn that Polynesians saw the ocean as alive, a being with feelings, not just water. You glance at the sea, its surface glinting under the stars, and it feels personal now, like it's watching you back. You add your coconut shell to the offerings, tossing it into the waves with a silent plea. Please don't drown me. Joke number one: if Tangaroa's grumpy, you're not praying, you're just begging for a timeout. You smirk, but the wayfinder's solemn nod keeps you serious. You're chanting again, the words starting to feel natural. It's a prayer for the crew, for strength, for the canoe you helped build. You think of those coconut fiber ropes you twisted, the adze you swung like a wannabe lumberjack. They're part of this ritual now, blessed by the gods, hopefully, and the wayfinder's sister joins in, her voice strong. And you're struck by the community here. Everyone's invested, from the kids hauling water to the elders weaving sails. You're not just praying for yourself, you're praying for them, for the village, for the islands you'll find. It's heavy, but it makes you feel connected, like you're part of a story bigger than this beach. The chant shifts, now honoring Hina, the moon goddess, who lights the night for Navig Sirianis, the star god, who guides wayfinders when clouds hide the sky. You toss a tie leaf into the waves, asking Hina for clear skies. You're learning that rituals weren't just formalities. Every gesture, every word, was a contract with the divine. You picture modern sailors checking weather apps and chuckle. These Polynesians would have laughed at a 50% chance of rain forecast they had Hina on speed dial. You're starting to respect the spiritual side, how it gave them courage to face the Pacific's tantrums. You pause, your voice hoarse from chanting. The wayfinder hands you a gourd of kava, a bitter drink meant to calm the nerves. You sip, grimacing. It tastes like dirt's sad cousin, but it does ease your jitters. You learn that kava was sometimes offered to the gods, poured into the sea like a celestial cocktail. You're tempted to pour the whole gourd out, but the wayfinder's watching. So you take another sip. Joke number two: if the gods don't like kava, you're not sailing, you're just bartending for fish. You grin, but the ritual's weight keeps you grounded. The prayer turns to the stars, the ones you're memorizing like a cosmic cheat sheet. You name Arcturus, Vega, Sirius, asking them to shine bright. You think of the star paths you practiced, how Aldebaran points to Tahiti. The chant feels like a bridge between you and the sky, tying your voice to the cosmos. You're not sure if it's the kava or the ritual, but you feel lighter, like the gods might actually be listening. You toss your hair braid into the sea, a small sacrifice, and hope it's enough to earn some divine frequent flyer miles. The fire's dying now, the village silent. You're chanting for the winds, for gentle trades to fill the pandanus sails you helped fold. You remember their golden weave, heavy in your hands, and feel a flicker of pride. The wayfinder's voice is a steady hum, and you match his rhythm, the words flowing easier. You learn that some crews held all-night vigils before sailing, chanting until dawn. You're exhausted just thinking about it. Your bedtime's usually 10 not sunrise, but you're starting to understand the devotion. You stand the sand cool under your feet and join the wayfinder at the water's edge. The final prayer is for unity, for the crew to work as one. You picture the canoe, its hulls waiting, and the provisions you packed taro, fish, that grumpy chicken. They're all part of this moment, blessed by your words. You toss a final offering, a small stone, into the waves and feel a spark of hope. The gods might not text back, but you're betting they're listening. The chant ends, and the silence is profound. You're hoarse, your knees stiff, but you feel ready for the sea, the stars, the journey. The wayfinder claps your shoulder, a rare gesture, and you smile. You glance at the canoe, its silhouette sharp against the sky, and think of the swells you learned to read, the waves whispering secrets. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're closer. The gods are out there. The sea's waiting, and you're almost ready to sail. Joke number 3, if you survive this, you're not a sailor, you're a professional prayer negotiator. You laugh softly, the stars watching, and step back toward the village, ready for dawn. You're standing on that Marquesan beach, the first light of dawn painting the sky in soft pinks and golds. The stars are fading, but their paths are still etched in your mind, like a song you can't stop humming. The double-hulled canoe is ready, its hulls packed with the taro, fish, and gourds you wrestled into place. The pandanus sails neatly folded. Your hands are still gritty from last night's offerings to Tangaroa, and you're pretty sure you smell like kava and sea salt, not exactly a cologne deal. The village is awake, buzzing with quiet excitement, as you and the crew prepare to launch. You're pushing off today, chasing the horizon, and the sea looks calm, but you know it's got a mischievous streak. You adjust your bark cloth wrap, take a deep breath, and hope the gods were listening to those prayers you chanted until your throat begged for mercy. Launching a Polynesian voyage was a communal event, a blend of precision and ceremony that marked the start of journeys spanning thousands of miles. Mainstream history confirms that Polynesian crews, often 20 to 30 strong, set sail in double-hulled canoes from beaches like this, using favorable winds and seasons to reach distant islands. You're standing at the water's edge, the canoe's prow kissing the waves, and the wayfinder's giving final instructions. His voice is calm, but his eyes scan the horizon like he's reading a book only he can see. You help push the canoe, your feet sinking into the wet sand, and feel the weight of it wood. Provisions, hopes, all ready to float or flounder. The crew's a mix veteran sailors, a couple of cocky teens, and you, the apprentice still learning star paths. You climb aboard, the platform creaking under your weight, and find a spot near the provisions. The taro baskets you packed are lashed tight, and that grumpy chicken's cage is mercifully quiet. The wayfinder signals, and the crew chants a final prayer, a short one to Hina for moonlight. You join in, your voice steadier than last night, and toss a tie leaf into the water. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews believed a good launch required a wave blessing, where the first swell to lift the canoe was a sign of Tangaroa's approval. Historians still argue whether this was superstition or a way to read the tide, but you're hoping for a big, friendly wave to boost your ego. The canoe glides forward, the crew paddling in sync, their paddles slicing the water like knives. You grab a paddle, trying to match their rhythm, but your first stroke splashes like a toddler in a kiddie pool. Joke number 1, if you keep paddling like that, you're not sailing. You're just hosting a splash party. You grin. But the sailor next to you, a guy with a shark tooth necklace, gives you a look that says, "Shape up." You focus, your arms burning, and soon you're in the groove, the canoe cutting through the shallows. The village shrinks behind you, palm trees waving like they're sad to see you go. You're in open water now, the shore a thin line on the horizon. The wayfinder's at the helm, his eyes on the swells you learn to read those southeast waves pointing to Tahiti. You feel them lift the canoe, a gentle rock that's oddly soothing. You're still clutching your paddle, but the sails are up now, golden pendulous catching the morning breeze. You helped fold those sails, and seeing them billow feels like a small victory. The wayfinder calls out a star path, naming Arcturus even though it's daytime, and you realize he's navigating by memory. Picturing the sky as it'll look tonight, you're impressed, then realize you're supposed to be memorizing this too great. More homework. The sea's calm, but you're not fooled. You learn that Polynesians timed launches for the trade wind season, when winds were steady and storms less likely. You glance at the sky, clear except for a few puffy clouds, and hope it stays that way. The wayfinder's teaching you to watch the wind's face, how it ripples the water or shifts the sails. You notice a faint chop, a sign of a cross swell, and feel a spark of pride you're starting to read the ocean like a wayfinder. Then you fumble your paddle, nearly dropping it overboard. Joke number 2 if you lose that. You're not rowing, you're just waving at fish. You laugh, but the shark tooth guy's glare keeps you focused. You settle into your spot, the platform warm under your thighs, the crew's chatting softly, sharing stories of past voyages. One guy swears he saw a whale bigger than the canoe, and you're not sure if he's bragging or warning you. You learn that launches were often emotional, with families singing farewell chants from the shore. You picture the village, the kids you saw chasing crabs, and feel a pang of homesickness. But the sea's calling, and the canoe's your home now. You check the provisions, making sure the water gourds are secure. Those coconuts you cracked are your lifeline, and you're not letting them roll overboard. The wayfinder's pointing at the horizon, describing how to spot cloud anchors, wispy streaks that hint at land far away. You squint, seeing nothing but blue, and wonder if he's got X-ray vision. You're learning that navigation is as much art as science, a dance of stars, swells, and gut instinct. The canoe rocks gently, and you feel the rhythm of the sea, like a heartbeat. You're starting to trust it, even if you're still the rookie who splashes too much. The wayfinder's voice is a steady hum, calling out directions, and you feel your eyelids droop. This is why Polynesian voyages make great sleep stories their rhythm. Their calm, their connection to the world. You're paddling again, your arms screaming. But the crew's pace keeps you going. The sails snap in the breeze, and you're moving faster now. The water hissing past the hulls. You think of the ropes you twisted, the hulls you carved, and feel a flicker of pride. This canoe's carrying you, and you helped build it. The wayfinder's chanting softly. A prayer or a star path? You're not sure, but it's soothing. You learn that crews often sang during long voyages, keeping spirits high. You try humming along, but your tune's more off-key wail than Polynesian ballad. Joke number 3 if you sing like that. You're not inspiring, you're just scaring the sharks. You grin, ready for the open sea. The horizon's endless, but you're not scared, not much. Anyway, the wayfinder's got the stars in his head, the swells under his feet, and you're starting to believe you'll make it. You glance back, the island now a speck, and feel a mix of awe and nerves. You're sailing, really sailing, and the Pacific's your road. You settle back, the canoe rocking. The crew's voice is a soft murmur. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're on your way, one paddle stroke at a time. You're out on the open Pacific now, the Marquesan shore long gone, just a memory of palm trees and chanting voices. The double-hulled canoe rocks gently beneath you, its pandanus sails taut with a steady breeze, and the sea stretches in every direction, a shimmering blue that's both beautiful and mildly terrifying. You're sprawled on the platform, your paddle resting across your lap, your arms still aching from that dawn launch. The provisions those taro baskets and grumpy chickens you packed are lashed tight, and the wayfinder's at the helm, his eyes scanning the horizon like he's reading a cosmic post-it note. You're learning to track the stars as they emerge in the twilight. Your job now to keep the canoe on course using the celestial map you've been cramming into your brain. You rub your eyes, wishing for a coffee that doesn't exist, and hope you don't mix up Sirius with some random firefly in the sky. Tracking stars was the heartbeat of Polynesian navigation, a skill that turned the night sky into a GPS for voyages spanning thousands of miles. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders used star paths, sequences of rising and setting stars, to steer toward islands like Tahiti or Hawaii. You're watching the sky now, the twilight deepening into a velvet blue, and Arcturus is climbing east, your guide to Hawaii. The wayfinder's chanting its name, his voice a low hum that blends with the waves' hiss. You repeat it. Arcturus, feeling like a kid reciting lines for a school play, except flubbing this could land you in the middle of nowhere. You spot Vega next, setting west, a backup marker for Samoa. You're starting to get the rhythm, but your brain's begging for a nap break. You shift, the platform creaking under you, and adjust your bark cloth wrap salts crusted on it. And you're basically a human pretzel now. The wayfinder's teaching you to anchor the canoe's course on a star's rising point, keeping it steady on the horizon. You squint at Arcturus, trying to hold the canoe's prow in line, but the gentle swells keep nudging you off. It's like playing a video game with a laggy controller, and you're not exactly scoring high. Here's a quirky tidbit: some wayfinders use their bodies as tools, lying flat to align their nose with a star for precision. Historians still argue whether this was common, or just a way to sneak a quick snooze. But you're tempted to try at anything to rest your aching back. You stay upright, though, because the shark tooth necklace guy's watching, and he's not impressed by your slouch. The crew's quiet, focused, their paddles dipping occasionally to correct the course. You're not paddling now. Your splashy debut was enough for one day, but you're keeping an eye on the swells. Those southeast waves you learned to read. They're lifting the canoe, a steady pulse that feels like the sea's breathing. You remember the wayfinder's lessons, how swells bend around islands, and you're trying to feel that subtle shift. Nothing yet, but you're hopeful. The wayfinder calls out serious. Rising now. And you adjust your mental map? It's like juggling, except the balls are stars. And dropping one means you're lost. Joke number one if you mess this up. You're not navigating, you're just stargazing with extra steps. You smirk, but the wayfinder's calm nod keeps you focused. You learn that stars aren't just for direction, they're clocks. 2. The wayfinder explains how Arcturus's position at midnight shifts with latitude, helping you gauge how far north or south you've drifted. You picture yourself as a cosmic timekeeper, but your internal clock's screaming. Bedtime. You stifle a yawn, the canoe's rock lulling you. The wayfinder's chanting again, naming star pairs, those star couples you doodled in the sand back on the beach. You remember drawing hearts around them and blush, thankfully. It's too dark for anyone to notice. You repeat the pairs, Aldebaran and Procyon, feeling a flicker of pride when you get it right. The sea's calm tonight, the breeze steady, and the sails snap softly. You glance at the provisions, the coconuts you cracked now your lifeline. You're tempted to sneak a sip, but the wayfinder's sister, who's steering the second hull, has eyes like a hawk. You settle for nibbling some dried fish, its salty tang waking you up. You learn that crews took turns watching the stars, rotating shifts to stay sharp. You're on first watch, which sounds cool until you realize it means no napping. You stretch, your back creaking, and focus on Vega. Its light dancing on the water like a tiny mirror. The wayfinder's pointing out zenith stars, ones that pass directly overhead to mark an island's latitude. He says Tahiti's got one, and you try to picture it. A star beaming down like a spotlight? It's mind-blowing, and you're starting to see why Polynesians were the rock stars of navigation. You picture modern sailors, glued to their screens, and chuckle they'd be lost without a low battery warning. You're learning to trust the sky, even if you're still the rookie who can't paddle straight. The wayfinder's voice is a steady hum, and you feel your shoulders relax. This is why these stories work for sleep: the rhythm, the calm, the connection to something vast. You're tracking Sirius now. Its rise confirming your course, the crew's murmuring, sharing quiet jokes, and you feel part of the team, even if you're still the splashy apprentice. You learn that wayfinders sometimes use star compasses, mental maps dividing the horizon into 32 points, each tied to a star or wind. You try to visualize it, your brain spinning like a lazy Susan. It's complex, but the Wayfinder makes it sound like a lullaby, his chant weaving stars into stories. You're hooked, even if your eyelids are staging a protest. The night's deep, the air cooler. You pull your wrap tighter, the salt crust scratching your skin. The Wayfinder's teaching you to watch for wave stars, star reflections on the water for cloudy nights. You spot Sirius's shimmer and feel a spark of confidence. Then you lean too far and nearly tip smooth move. Apprentice. Joke number 2 if you fall overboard. You're not navigating, you're just testing the water's temperature. You laugh, but the shark-tooth guy's glare keeps you upright. You're getting better, though. You name Arcturus, Vega, Sirius, and the Wayfinder nods. A rare approval. You're not a Wayfinder yet, but you're holding the course, keeping the canoe's prow on that star's rising point. The sea's your guide, the star's your map, and you're starting to believe you'll find land. You glance at the horizon, a faint line under the moonlight, and feel a mix of awe and nerves. You're sailing, really sailing, and the Pacific's your world. You settle back, the canoe rocking. The crew's voices a soft hum. You're ready for the next star, the next swell, the next step. Joke number 3 if you survive this. You're not a sailor, you're a professional star stalker. You grin, the sky watching, and keep your eyes on the heavens. You're deep in the Pacific now, the canoe gliding through the endless blue, its pandanus sails catching a steady breeze that hums like a distant lullaby. The stars are your guide, Arcturus still holding steady on the horizon, and you're getting the hang of tracking them, though your neck's complaining from all the stargazing. The platform beneath you is warm, creaking softly with the swells, and the provisions those taro baskets and coconuts you packed are holding up. Though that chicken's starting to give you side-eye again, your paddle's stowed, your hands free to grip the edge as the sea grows restless, tossing up waves that slap the hulls like they're testing your nerve. You're facing your first real waves today, and the Wayfinder's calm as ever, his eyes reading the water like it's a bedtime story. You, on the other hand, are clutching the platform and wondering if seasickness is a personality trait. Polynesian navigators were masters of handling the ocean's moods, steering through swells and squalls with a mix of skill and stubborn optimism. Mainstream history confirms that double-hulled canoes were built to withstand rough seas, their flexible lashings and twin hulls absorbing the impact of waves that would have snapped a lesser boat. You feel the canoe lift, riding a swell that rolls from the southeast those Tahiti-bound waves you learned to spot. It's smooth, but then a cross-swell hits, chopping the water into a frothy mess. You lurch, your stomach doing a flip, and grip the platform tighter. The Wayfinder's unfazed, adjusting the sail with a quick tug, and you're starting to think he's part sea god himself. You shift, your bark cloth wrapped damp with spray. The crew's working together, some paddling to steady the canoe, others bailing water with coconut shells. You grab a shell, scooping out the sloshing seawater, and feel mildly heroic until you splash yourself in the face. Classic apprentice move. The Wayfinder's sister, steering the second hull, shouts something about feeling the wave's heart, and you're trying to figure out if that's poetry or instructions. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews believed waves carried spirits, and a big swell was a test from Tangaroa himself. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual or just a way to psych up the crew, but you're praying to Tangaroa anyway, just in case. You mutter a quick plea, hoping he's not in a mood to throw a tsunami your way. The waves are bigger now, whitecaps foaming like the sea's having a tantrum. You learn that Polynesians read wave patterns to predict storms, noticing how swells shorten or steepen. The Wayfinder's pointing at a dark ripple, a sign of wind building, and you feel a knot in your gut. You remember the prayers you chanted back on the beach, tossing that coconut shell into the waves, and hope they're still cashing in. The canoe's holding strong. Those coconut fiber ropes you twisted creaking but solid. You're proud of those ropes. even if your hands still hate you for it. The hulls flex with each wave, absorbing the shock, and you're starting to trust the boat you helped build. You're bailing again, the shell slippery in your hands, the crew's chanting a work song, their voices cutting through the waves' roar, and you join in, your voice wobbly but determined. It's not the prayer to Heine you practiced, but a rhythm to keep everyone synced, like a sea shanty for the soul. You're soaked, your hair plastered to your face, and you're pretty sure you look like a drowned rat. Joke number one, if you keep bailing like this, you're not sailing, you're just auditioning for a water park job? You grin. But the shark tooth necklace guy's paddling hard, and you focus, scooping faster. The wayfinder's teaching you to ride the waves, not fight them, letting the canoe flow with the sea's rhythm. You watch him. His hands light on the steering paddle and try to mimic his calm. It's like dancing with a partner who's way better than you. And the sea's definitely leading. You feel a big swell coming, the canoe climbing its face, and brace yourself. The crest breaks, spraying you with foam, but the canoe slides down smoothly. The hull steady. You exhale, realizing you didn't fall overboard small victories. The wayfinder nods, a rare approval, and you feel a spark of confidence. You learn that crews sometimes lash themselves to the platform during rough seas, using vines to stay put. You're tempted. But the waves are calming now, the white caps softening. You glance at the provisions. The taro basket still secure and check the water gourds those coconuts you cracked are gold out here. You're hungry, so you nibble some dried fish. Its salt waking your senses. The wayfinder's sister passes you a kava gourd, and you sip, grimacing at the bitter taste but grateful for the calm it brings. You're starting to see why Polynesians love this stuff. It's like nature's chill pill. The sea's settling. The swells longer and gentler. You're back to watching the stars. Sirius now high, confirming your course. You remember the star paths you memorized, Arcturus pointing to Hawaii, and feel a flicker of pride. You're not just surviving, you're navigating. The wayfinder's chanting softly a mix of star names and prayers, and you join in, your voice blending with the crew's. It's soothing, like the canoe's rock, and you realize this is why these stories work for sleep: the rhythm, the repetition, the sense of being held by something vast. You're drier now, the spray less aggressive, the crew's relaxing, some stretching out on the platform, others swapping stories. One guy claims he once rode a wave taller than a palm tree, and you're not sure if he's bragging or delusional. You learn that rough seas were a rite of passage, proving the crew's trust in the wayfinder and the canoe. You're starting to trust them too, even if you're still the rookie who bails water like a clumsy intern. The wayfinder's pointing at a cloud, a faint streak that might hint at land. You squint, seeing nothing, and wonder if he's got magical eyes. The night's deepening, the air cooler. You pull your wrap tighter, the salt crust scratching your skin. The canoe's moving smoothly now. The swell's your guide, the stars your map. You're learning to read the sea's moods, to feel its pulse through the hulls. You think of the swells you studied, the prayers you offered, and feel connected to the journey. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're holding your own. The wayfinder's voice is a steady hum, and you feel your eyelids droop. Joke number two. If you fall asleep now, you're not lazy, you're just wave meditating. You grin, but the crew's focus keeps you awake. You're back to bailing, just in case. The shell familiar in your hands. The sea's calm, but you're ready for its next trick. You glance at the horizon, a faint line under the starlight, and feel a mix of awe and nerves. You're sailing, really sailing, and the Pacific's your world. You settle back, the canoe rocking. The crew's voice is a soft murmur. You're ready for the next wave, the next star, the next challenge. Joke number three. If you survive this, you're not a sailor, you're a professional wave wrangler. You smile, the sky watching, and keep your eyes on the sea. You're still gliding across the Pacific. The double-hulled canoe slicing through the endless blue, its pandana sails snapping in a steady breeze. The stars are your compass. Sirius blazing high, keeping you on course for that distant speck of land you're starting to believe might actually exist. The platform beneath you is damp from last night's waves, and your bark cloth wrap is stiff with salt, making you feel like a human saltine cracker. The provisions are holding up those taro baskets you packed are still secure, though the chicken's clucking like it's plotting a mutiny. Today, you're learning to navigate by feel, sensing currents and winds through the canoe's sway and the sea's subtle cues. The wayfinder's at the helm, his calm as unshakable as ever, while you're trying to channel his zen and not overthink the fact that you're basically a speck in an ocean that doesn't care about your feelings. Polynesian navigators were wizards at reading the environment, using sensory cues like currents and wind shifts to complement their star paths. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders could detect current tongues, strips of water flowing differently, by observing color, temperature, or even the canoe's drift. You're leaning over the platform's edge, the water cool against your hand, trying to feel a current the wayfinder's describing. He says it's warmer, moving faster, a sign you're in a stream heading toward Tahiti. You concentrate, but all you feel is wet grate. You're basically a human thermometer with no clue. The wayfinder's patient, pointing at a faint ripple, and you squint, hoping to unlock some secret sea whisperer skill. You shift, the platform creaking, and wipe spray from your face. The crew's busy, some paddling gently, others checking the sails you helped fold back on the beach. You're not paddling today. Your splashy debut was legendary for all the wrong reasons. Instead, you're watching the wind, how it ruffles the water or tugs the sails. The wayfinder's teaching you to taste the wind, feeling its direction by turning your face. You try, the breeze cool and salty, and realize it's shifting slightly west. You report it, proud of your observation, until the shark-tooth necklace guy snorts apparently. Everyone already knew. Joke number one if you keep stating the obvious. You're not navigating, you're just the weather intern. You grin, but focus harder, determined to prove yourself. Here's a quirky tidbit: some wayfinders claimed they could smell land volcanic soil or blooming flowers hundreds of miles away. Historians still argue whether this was real or just wishful thinking after weeks of fishy provisions. But you're sniffing the air now, hoping for a whiff of anything but salt water and that chicken's attitude. Nothing yet, just the sea's briny tang. But you're starting to trust your senses. You notice the canoe's sway, how it dips differently when a current tugs. The wayfinder says it's like reading a book through your feet, and you're trying to feel the story in the hulls you helped carve. Those coconut fiber ropes you twisted are holding strong, and you're quietly proud, even if your hands still hold a grudge. You're back to watching the water, the swells rolling in from the southeast, those Tahiti-bound waves you learned to read. You feel a subtle shift, a cooler current brushing the canoe's side, and call it out. The wayfinder nods, a rare approval, and you feel like you've just aced a test. You're learning to sense drift, how the canoe slides when currents pull it off course. The wayfinder's adjusting the steering paddle, his movement small but precise, and you're trying to mimic his focus. You picture modern sailors glued to their radar and chuckle they'd be lost without a recalculating beep. Polynesians didn't need tech. They had their bodies, their brains, and a canoe that laughed at storms. The crew's chatting softly, sharing stories of past voyages. One guy swears he felt a current so strong it spun his canoe like a top, and you're not sure if he's exaggerating or just loves drama. You learn that wayfinders train their senses for years, sometimes blindfolding apprentices to sharpen their feel for currents. You're grateful you're not blindfolded, but the sea's a tough enough teacher. You lean over again, trailing your hand, and notice a faint warmth another current tongue. You report it, and the wayfinder's sister, steering the second hull, gives you a nod. You're starting to feel like part of the crew, even if you're still the rookie who smells like fish. The wind's picking up, ruffling your hair, and you're learning to read its voice, how it whistles through the sails or hums against the ropes. You think of the prayers you chanted to Tangaroa, tossing that coconut shell into the waves, and hope he's keeping the winds friendly. The wayfinder's teaching you to feel the canoe's balance, how it leans when wind and current fight. You notice a slight tilt, the left hull dipping, and call it out. The wayfinder adjusts, and you feel a spark of pride. You're not just along for the ride, you're helping steer. Then you trip over a gourd, nearly knocking it overboard. Smooth move. Apprentice. Joke number 2 if you keep stumbling. You're not navigating, you're just practicing for the canoe dance team. You laugh, but the crew's focus keeps you grounded. You're back to sensing currents, the water's texture changing under your hand. You learn that Polynesians could spot floating debris, seaweed, driftwood as signs of nearby land. You scan the surface, seeing nothing but foam, and wonder if you're missing something obvious. The wayfinder's chanting softly, a mix of star names and prayers, and you join in, your voice blending with the sea's hiss. It's soothing, like the canoe's rock, and you realize this is why these stories work for sleep. The rhythm, the calm, the sense of being part of something vast. You think of the star paths you memorized, Arcturus guiding you, and feel connected to the journey. The day's warming, the sun climbing higher. You pull your wrap tighter, the salt crust scratching your skin. The crew's settling into a rhythm, some napping under the sails, others munching dried fish. You grab a piece, it's salt waking your senses. And check the water gourds, those coconuts you cracked are still your lifeline. You're learning to trust your senses, to feel the sea's pulse through the canoe. The wayfinder's pointing at a cloud, a faint streak that might hint at land. You squint, seeing nothing, and wonder if he's got a sixth sense. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're starting to feel the ocean. Not just see it. The canoe's moving smoothly. The swell's your guide, the wind's your ally. You're sensing a current now, its warmth brushing the hulls, and you call it out, earning another nod. You're getting better, even if you're still the rookie who trips over gourds. The wayfinder's voice is a steady hum, and you feel your eyelids droop. Joke number 3 if you fall asleep now. You're not lazy, you're just current whispering. You grin, but the sea's rhythm keeps you awake. You glance at the horizon, a faint line under the sunlight, and feel a mix of awe and nerves. You're sailing, really sailing, and the Pacific's your world. You're ready for the next current, the next wind, the next step. You're still adrift on the vast Pacific, the double-hulled canoe slicing through the waves, its pandanus sails taut under a restless wind. The stars are hidden by a gray dawn sky, and you're shivering in your salt-crusted bark cloth wrap. The platform beneath you slick with spray. The provisions, those taro baskets and coconuts you packed, are still secure, but the chicken's clucking like it's filing a formal complaint. You're gripping the edge, your knuckles pale, as a storm looms on the horizon, a dark wall of clouds that looks like the sea's about to throw a tantrum. The wayfinder's calm, his eyes scanning the swells you've learned to read, but you're not feeling his zen. You're battling a squall today, and it's testing every skill you've picked up: star paths, wave patterns, and that time you didn't drop a gourd. You mutter a quick prayer to Tangaroa, hoping he's still cashing in those offerings from the beach. Polynesian navigators were no strangers to storms, their canoes and skills designed to weather the Pacific's worst moods. Mainstream history confirms that double-hulled canoes could handle rough seas, their flexible coconut fiber lashings. Yep, the ones you twisted until your hands screamed, absorbing the shock of pounding waves. You feel the canoe lurch as a swell hits, bigger than the ones you faced before, and the hulls groan but hold. The wayfinder's shouting orders, his voice cutting through the wind's howl, and you're scrambling to lower the sails. Your fingers fumble the ropes, wet and slippery, but you manage to pull them down, the pandanus mats flapping like angry wings. You're soaked, your hair plastered to your face, and you're pretty sure you look like a drowned coconut. The crew's moving fast, some bailing water with coconut shells, others lashing provisions tighter. You grab a shell, scooping out the sloshing seawater, and feel a pang of deja vu. Didn't you just do this? The Wayfinder's sister is steering the second hull, her braid whipping in the wind, and she's yelling about riding the storms back. You're not sure if that's wisdom or poetry, but you're too busy bailing to ask. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews believed storms were Tangaroa's way of testing their respect, and a good chant could calm his rage. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual or just a way to keep morale up. But you're chanting now, your voice shaky, hoping it's both. You toss a mental tea leaf to Tangaroa, promising to be super respectful if he chills out. The waves are monsters now, their crests curling like they're ready to swallow you whole. You learn that Polynesians navigated storms by quartering the waves, angling the canoe to climb their slopes without capsizing. The Wayfinder's doing that now, his steering paddle steady, and you're trying to trust him. But your stomach's doing somersaults. You feel a massive swell lift the canoe, the platform tilting, and you brace yourself, gripping a rope, thank you, past you, for twisting those so tightly. The canoe crests the wave, sliding down its back, and you exhale, realizing you're still aboard. You're starting to respect the canoe's design, those hulls you carved absorbing the sea's punches like a champ. You're bailing again, the shell slippery in your hands, the crew's chanting a work song, their voices defiant against the storm's roar, and you join in, your voice lost in the wind but finding strength in theirs. It's not the prayer you chanted on the beach, but a rhythm to keep you moving, like a heartbeat against the chaos. You're drenched, your arms burning, and you're pretty sure you've swallowed half the ocean. Joke number one: if you keep bailing like this, you're not sailing, you're just running a mobile aquarium. You grin, but the shark-tooth necklace guy's paddling hard, his face set, and you scoop faster, determined not to be the weak link. The Wayfinder's teaching you to watch the wind's teeth, how it shifts suddenly in a squall. You notice the breeze veering east, stinging your face with spray, and call it out. He nods, adjusting the paddle, and you feel a spark of pride. You're not just surviving, you're helping. Then a wave slaps you, soaking your wrap, and you're back to feeling like a soggy apprentice. You learn that storms could last hours or days, and crews often lash themselves to the platform to stay put. You're tempted, but the Wayfinder's sister hands you a vine, and you tie it around your waist, feeling like a budget action hero. The rain's pelting now, a curtain of water blurring the horizon. You're learning to spot storm swells, shorter, steeper waves that signal the squall's heart. The Wayfinder's angling the canoe to avoid their full force, and you're trying to feel the sea's rhythm through the hulls. You think of the current tongues you sensed yesterday, their warmth guiding you, and hope they're still there under this chaos. The canoe's rocking hard, but those ropes you twisted are holding, and you're grateful for every callus you earned. You're bailing, chanting, gripping the vine, and somehow keeping it together. The crew's a unit now, their movement synced despite the storm. One guy's securing the chicken cage, good call. You're not chasing that hen in this mess, and another's tightening the sail ropes. You learn that storms were a test of trust in the Wayfinder, the canoe, and each other. You're starting to trust them, even if you're still the rookie who bails like a frantic intern. The Wayfinder's chanting softly, a mix of star names and prayers, and you join in, your voice hoarse but steady. It's soothing, like the canoe's creak, and you realize this is why these stories work for sleep: the rhythm, the resilience, the sense of being held by something bigger. The storm's easing, the waves softening, the rain a drizzle now. You're exhausted, your arms like jelly, but you're still bailing. The shell familiar in your hands? The Wayfinder's pointing at a clearing sky, a patch of blue where stars might shine tonight. You squint, hoping for Arcturus, your old friend. You think of the star paths you memorized, the swells you read, and feel connected to the journey. You're not a Wayfinder yet, but you faced the sea's wrath and didn't totally panic progress. The crew's relaxing, some wringing out their wraps, others munching dried fish. You grab a piece, it's salt grounding you, and check the water gourds. Those coconuts you cracked are still your lifeline. The canoe's moving smoother now, the swell's gentler. You untie the vine, your waist sore, and settle back. The platform warm despite the damp. The wayfinder's voice is a steady hum, and you feel your eyelids droop. Joke number 2 if you fall asleep now. You're not lazy, you're just storm recovering. You grin, but the crew's focus keeps you awake. You glance at the horizon, a faint line under the clearing sky, and feel a mix of awe and relief. You're sailing, really sailing, and you've survived your first squall. You're ready for the next wave, the next star, the next challenge. Joke number 3 if you survive this, you're not a sailor. You're a professional storm wrestler. You smile, the sea calming, and keep your eyes on the sky. The storm's behind you now, the Pacific settling into a gentler rhythm. It swells rocking the double-hulled canoe like a cradle. The sky's clearing, a soft blue peeking through tattered clouds, and the pandanus sails are back up, catching a lazy breeze. You're sprawled on the platform, your salt-crusted bark cloth wrap itching like a bad decision. And your arms are still jelly from bailing water during that squall. The provisions, those taro baskets and coconuts you packed are safe, though the chicken's clucking has a smug I survived vibe. You're resting under the sails today, napping beneath the pandanus mats you helped fold, lulled by the waves' soft hiss and the crew's quiet murmurs. The wayfinder's at the helm, his eyes on the horizon, and you're grateful for a moment to breathe, even if you're still half expecting the sea to throw another tantrum. Polynesian crews knew how to pace themselves on long voyages, taking rest when the sea allowed to conserve energy for the next challenge. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders and their crews rotated tasks steering, paddling, napping to stay sharp over weeks or months at sea. You're stretched out now, a pandanus mat shielding you from the sun, its woven texture rough but comforting against your skin. The mat smells faintly of earth, a reminder of the beach where you learned to read swells and chant prayers. You close your eyes, the canoe's sway sinking with your breath, and feel the weight of the storm lift. You're not napping yet, okay? Maybe a little, but you're soaking in the calm, knowing it's as vital as any star path. You shift, the platform creaking, and peek out from under the mat. The crew's in a rare lull. Some dozing, others nibbling dried fish. The wayfinder's sister is steering, her braid swaying as she hums a tune. You recognize it as the work song from the storm, now softened into something almost tender. You learn that Polynesians used rest strategically, napping in short bursts to stay alert. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews believed napping under sails invited dreams from Hina, the moon goddess, who'd whisper navigation tips. Historians still argue whether these dreams were spiritual or just exhaustion talking, but you're half hoping Hina drops by with a cheat sheet for Arcturus's next move. You yawn, the mat's shade tempting you to test the theory. The sea's a mirror today, reflecting the sky's blue and the occasional puff of cloud. You're learning to appreciate these quiet moments, when the canoe feels like a floating home. You think of the hulls you carved, the ropes you twisted, and feel a flicker of pride they survived that squall. And so did you. The wayfinder's chanting softly, naming stars even in daylight, keeping the course in his head. You try to recall the star path for Tahiti Arcturus. Procyon, that dim one you keep forgetting and mutter it under your breath. You're getting better, even if you're still the rookie who bailed water like a frantic intern. The wayfinder's calm is contagious, and you feel your shoulders relax. You're hungry, so you reach for a coconut, cracking it open with a bone knife you've gotten semi-decent at using. The water's sweet, washing away the salt in your mouth, and you nibble some taro paste, still not your favorite, but it's growing on you. You learn that crews ate sparingly, stretching provisions like the pros they were. You picture modern sailors, grumbling without their energy bars, and chuckle. Polynesians didn't need snacks. They had discipline and a canoe that doubled as a pantry. You check the water gourds, making sure they're secure. Those coconuts you packed are your lifeline, and you're not letting them roll overboard. The crew's stirring now. Some swapping stories, One guy claims he napped through a storm once, waking up to find the canoe on course thanks Wayfinder. You're not sure if he's bragging or just lucky, but it's a good vibe. You learn that rest wasn't just physical, it was mental, a chance to reset after the sea's chaos. You think of the prayers you chanted to Tangaroa, tossing that Thai leaf into the waves, and hope he's still in a good mood. The Wayfinder's sister passes you a kava gourd, and you sip, grimacing at the bitter taste but feeling the calm spread. You're starting to get why they love this stuff. It's like a hug from the inside. You're back under the mat. The canoes sway, lulling you. The Wayfinder's teaching you to listen to the sea during rest, how its sounds change with currents or winds. You hear a faint gurgle under the hulls, a sign of a current tongue you felt yesterday. You call it out, your voice muffled by the mat, and the Wayfinder nods score one for the apprentice. You're learning to trust your senses, even when you're half asleep. The sea's a teacher, and you're starting to hear its lessons. You think of the swells you rid, their southeast pulse guiding you, and feel connected to the journey. The sun's climbing, the air warming. You pull the mat closer, the shade a relief. The crew's voices are a soft hum, blending with the waves' hiss. You learn that Polynesians used rest to bond, sharing stories or chants to keep spirits high. You try humming the work song, your voice wobbly but earnest, and the Wayfinder's sister smiles a rare win. You're part of the crew now, even if you're still the rookie who trips over gourds. The Wayfinder's chanting again, a prayer or a star path, and you join in, your voice fading into the sea's rhythm. It's soothing, like the canoe's rock, and you realize this is why these stories work for sleep. The calm, the connection, the sense of being held. You're drifting, not quite napping, but close. The sea's gentle, the sails snapping softly. You think of the star paths you memorized, the waves you faced, and feel a spark of pride you're not just surviving. You're sailing. The Wayfinder's pointing at a cloud, a faint streak that might hint at land. You squint, seeing nothing, and wonder if he's got a secret superpower. You're not a Wayfinder yet, but you're learning to rest like one, to trust the sea's rhythm. The canoe's your home, the crew your family, and you're ready for whatever's next. Joke number one if you fall asleep now. You're not lazy, you're just sea dreaming. You grin, the mat cozy, and let the waves carry you. You stir. The sun higher now. The crew's back to work. Some paddling, others checking ropes. You fold the mat, your body stiff but refreshed. The Wayfinder's teaching you to feel the canoe's pulse, how it moves with the sea. You notice a slight dip, a current tugging, and call it out, earning another nod. You're getting better, even if you're still the rookie who smells like taro paste. The sea's calm, but you're ready for its next trick. You glance at the horizon, a faint line under the sunlight, and feel a mix of awe and calm. You're sailing, really sailing, and the Pacific's your world. You're ready for the next swell, the next star, the next nap. Joke number two if you survive this. You're not a sailor, you're a professional snooze navigator. You smile, the sea whispering, and keep your eyes on the sky. You're back on the Pacific, the double-hulled canoe gliding through a sea that's finally playing nice. Its swells gentle and predictable. The pandanus sails are full, snapping softly in the breeze, and the platform beneath you is warm, though still a bit damp from that squall you survived. Your bark cloth wrap is starting to feel like a second skin, salt-crusted and stiff, and you're pretty sure you smell like a mix of taro paste and existential dread. The provisions are holding strong. Those coconuts and taro baskets you packed are still your lifeline. And even the chickens settled down, probably plotting its next escape. Today, you're scanning the sky for seabirds, their flight patterns a clue that lands tantalizingly close. The Wayfinder's at the helm, his eyes sharp, and you're trying to match his focus, though your mind keeps wandering to the nap you snuck under the sails yesterday. Polynesian navigators were experts at reading nature's signs, and seabirds were like neon billboards pointing to land. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders tracked birds like frigate birds and terns, whose daily flights to and from islands revealed nearby shores, sometimes hundreds of miles away. You're perched on the platform, shielding your eyes from the sun, and spot a speck in the sky a tern, its wings flashing white against the blue. The wayfinder nods, saying it's heading home, likely to an atoll you can't yet see. You squint, trying to track its path, but it's like following a hyperactive firefly. You're excited, though land means fresh water, solid ground, and maybe a break from that chicken's judgmental stare. You shift, the platform creaking, and adjust your wrap salts flaking off like you're a human seasoning shaker. The crew's alert now, some paddling gently, others scanning the horizon. The wayfinder's teaching you to identify birds by their flight. Terns, he says, fly low and direct at dusk, heading to roost, while frigate birds soar high, their red throat pouches puffed like balloons. You spot a frigate bird, its pouch looking like a bad fashion choice, and call it out. The wayfinder's sister, steering the second hull, confirms it's a good sign lands within a day's sail. You're thrilled, then realize you're supposed to keep tracking it. Joke number one if you lose that bird. You're not navigating, you're just birdwatching with extra pressure. You grin, but focus, determined not to mess this up. Here's a quirky tidbit some wayfinders believed seabirds carried messages from ancestors, guiding lost crews to safety. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual or just a poetic way to hype up tired sailors, but you're picturing a tern dropping a cosmic post-it note saying, "Turn left at the next wave." You chuckle, but the wayfinder's pointing at another bird, a booby this time, its clumsy dive signaling fish nearby, and fish mean reefs, which mean land. You're starting to see the sea as a web of clues, each bird a thread leading you closer to shore. You think of the swells you read, the currents you felt, and feel connected to the journey. You're scanning the sky again, your neck stiff from craning. The wayfinder's teaching you to note the bird's direction, and timing terns fly out at dawn, back at dusk, like clockwork. You spot a flock now, their wings slicing the air, and track their path. Southwest. You call it out, and the wayfinder adjusts the paddle, aligning the canoe with their flight. You feel a spark of pride. You're not just the rookie who bails water anymore. You're helping steer. Then you sneeze, salt tickling your nose, and nearly lose sight of the flock's smooth move. Apprentice. You recover, keeping your eyes on the birds, and hope no one noticed. The crew's buzzing. The prospect of land lifting their spirits? One guy's telling a story about a voyage where birds led his crew to a hidden lagoon. And you're hooked. Imagining palm trees and fresh fruit? You learn that Polynesians used birds not just for navigation, but as food, catching them with nets in a pinch. You glance at the chicken's cage and wonder if it's feeling nervous. Don't worry, you're not that desperate yet. You nibble some dried fish. It's salt grounding you, and check the water gourds. Those coconuts you cracked are still your lifeline, and you're not letting them roll overboard. The wayfinder's chanting softly, a mix of star names and prayers, and you join in, your voice blending with the waves' hiss. It's soothing, like the canoe's rock, and you realize this is why these stories work for Sleep the Rhythm, the hope, the sense of being guided. You think of the prayers you chanted to Tangaroa, tossing that tie leaf into the waves, and hope he's still rooting for you. The wayfinder's sister passes you a kava gourd, and you sip, grimacing at the bitter taste but feeling the calm spread. You're starting to get why they love this stuff. It's like a liquid pep talk. You're back to birdwatching, spotting a tern, diving for fish. You learn that Polynesians could estimate distance by a bird's behavior. Terns stay within 100 miles of land. Frigate birds farther. You're calculating in your head, feeling like a math nerd with a paddle, and estimate you're close maybe a day, maybe less. The wayfinder confirms it, his nod a rare win, and you're buzzing with excitement. You think of the star paths you memorized, Arcturus guiding you, and the swells you read, their pulse pointing southwest. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're reading the sea's signs and it feels like magic. The sun's high now, the air warm. You pull your wrap tighter, the salt crust scratching your skin. The crew's voices are a soft hum, blending with the waves. You learn that spotting birds was a team effort, with lookouts posted day and night. You're on lookout now, your eyes burning from the glare, but you're determined. The wayfinder's pointing at a cloud, a faint streak that might anchor to land. You squint, seeing nothing, and wonder if he's got hawk eyes. You're starting to trust the signs, even if you're still the rookie who sneezes at the worst moments. The canoe's moving smoothly, the swell's your guide, the birds your hope. You spot another frigate bird, its pouch inflated like a red flag, and call it out. The wayfinder adjusts the course, and you feel like you've just scored a goal. The sea's calm, but you're ready for its next trick. You glance at the horizon, a faint line under the sunlight, and feel a mix of awe and anticipation. You're sailing, really sailing, and land's close. You're ready for the next bird, the next swell, the next step. Joke number 2. If you survive this, you're not a sailor, you're a professional birdstalker. You smile, the sea whispering, and keep your eyes on the sky. You're still slicing through the Pacific, the double-hulled canoe steady under a sky that's now a brilliant blue, dotted with fluffy clouds. The Pendanus sails hum with the breeze, and the platform beneath you is warm, though your salt-crusted bark cloth wrap is starting to feel like sandpaper couture. The provisions, those taro baskets and coconuts you packed, are still secure, and the chicken's clucking has mellowed into a grudging truce. You're skirting coral reefs today, their jagged edges lurking just below the surface, while reflecting on the wayfinder's genius that got you this far. The wayfinder's at the helm, his eyes scanning the water for telltale ripples, and you're trying to match his focus, though you're half distracted by the seabirds you spotted yesterday. Their promise of land still buzzing in your head. You rub your neck, stiff from craning at the sky, and hope you don't accidentally steer into a coral ambush. Polynesian navigators were masters at dodging reefs, using sharp observation to navigate the treacherous waters around islands. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders read watercolor and wave patterns to spot coral, which could shred a canoe's hulls faster than you can say shipwreck. You're leaning over the platform's edge, the sea sparkling like a jewel, and notice a patch of turquoise ahead, shallower water, a sign of reef. The wayfinder's already on it, steering the canoe wide, his paddle dipping with precision. You feel the hulls shift, those breadfruit logs you carved gliding smoothly, and breathe a sigh of relief. You're starting to appreciate the canoe's design, those coconut fiber ropes you twisted holding firm against the sea's tricks. You shift, the platform creaking, and wipe spray from your face. The crew's alert, some paddling gently to keep the canoe on course, others watching the water. The wayfinder's teaching you to spot reefs by wave breaks, small ripples where coral disrupts the swells. You squint, seeing a faint froth ahead, and call it out. The wayfinder's sister, steering the second hull, nods, and you feel a spark of pride. You're not just the rookie who bails water anymore. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews believed reefs were guarded by spirits, and a quick chant could appease them. Historians still argue whether this was superstition or a way to focus the crew, but you're muttering a quiet plea to any coral gods listening. Just in case. You don't need a haunted reef on your resume. The water's clearer now, revealing flashes of coral pink, green, branching like underwater trees. You're awed, but also nervous. One wrong move, and those pretty branches could gut the canoe. You learn that Polynesians memorized reef patterns around known islands, passing the knowledge through chants. You picture the wayfinder's mind as a living map, stuffed with stars, swells, and now coral mazes. You try to memorize the turquoise patch's shape, muttering it like a star path, but your brain's starting to feel like a soggy taro root. You think of the prayers you chanted to Tangaroa, tossing that teed leaf into the waves, and hope he's keeping the reefs friendly. You're paddling now, Your arms protesting but finding a rhythm. The wayfinder's teaching you to feel the reef's pull, how the canoe slows when coral's near. You notice a slight drag, the hull's catching, and call it out. The wayfinder adjusts, steering wide, and you feel like you've just dodged a bullet. You're starting to respect the sea's beauty and its bite, how it gives you birds and reefs in the same breath. You think of the frigate birds you tracked yesterday, their red pouches pointing to land, and feel a flicker of hope lands close. If you can just avoid these underwater landmines. The crew's chanting softly, a work song to keep the paddles synced, and you join in, your voice wobbly but earnest. It's not the prayer to Hina you practiced, but a rhythm to steady your nerves. You're sweating, the sun high, and you're pretty sure you look like a salty scarecrow. Joke number one if you hit a reef. You're not sailing, you're just opening a coral art gallery. You grin. But the shark tooth necklace guy's paddling hard, his eyes on the water, and you focus, dipping your paddle deeper. The canoe's moving smoothly, the swell's gentle, but you're hyper-aware of every ripple now. You learn that reefs weren't just hazards, they were landmarks. Proof you're near an island. The wayfinder's describing a voyage where a reef's shape led his crew to a hidden lagoon, and you're hooked, imagining palm trees and fresh water. You're hungry, so you grab a piece of dried fish, its salt waking your senses, and check the water gourds those coconuts you cracked are still your lifeline. The wayfinder's sister passes you a kava gourd, and you sip, grimacing at the bitter taste but feeling the calm spread. You're starting to get why they love this stuff. It's like a liquid high five. You're back to watching the water, spotting another turquoise patch. You call it out, and the wayfinder steers clear, the hull skimming safely past. You're getting better, even if you're still the rookie who trips over gourds. You think of the wayfinder's genius, how they turn the sea's dangers into signposts. You picture modern sailors, panicking without their sonar, and chuckle they'd be lost without a reef-detected alert. Polynesians didn't need tech. They had eyes, ears, and a canoe that laughed at coral. You're learning to trust your senses, to see the sea as a story, not just a threat. The day's warming, the air thick with salt. You pull your wrap tighter, the salt crust scratching your skin. The crew's voices are a soft hum, blending with the waves' hiss. You learn that skirting reefs was a team effort, with lookouts posted to spot color changes or fish schools. You're on lookout now, your eyes burning from the glare, but you're determined. The wayfinder's pointing at a cloud, a faint streak that might anchor to land. You squint, seeing nothing, and wonder if he's got eagle eyes. You're starting to trust the signs, even if you're still the rookie who mutters to coral spirits. You spot another reef, its shadow lurking under the waves, and call it out. The wayfinder adjusts, and you feel like you've just aced a test. The sea's calm, but you're ready for its next trick. You glance at the horizon, a faint line under the sunlight, and feel a mix of awe and anticipation. You're sailing, really sailing, and lands close. You think of the star paths you memorized, the swells you read, the birds you tracked, and feel connected to the journey. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're dodging reefs like one. Joke number two if you survive this. You're not a sailor. You're a professional coral whisperer. You smile, the sea sparkling, and keep your eyes on the water. You're still cutting through the Pacific, the double-hulled canoe gliding over swells that feel like old friends now, their southeast pulse guiding you toward land. The pandanus sails are taut, humming in the breeze, and the platform beneath you is warm, though your salt-crusted bark cloth wrap is basically a crusty towel at this point. The provisions those taro baskets and coconuts you packed are still holding strong, and the chicken's clucking has settled into a background hum, like it's finally accepted its fate. Today, your heart skips as you glimpse a smudge on the horizon in atoll, a speck of green proving the wayfinder's art and all those star paths you memorized weren't just cosmic daydreams. The wayfinder's calm, his eyes gleaming with quiet pride. while you're trying not to bounce like an overexcited kid. You rub your hands, still sore from twisting ropes, and feel a rush of relief. Actual land, is finally within reach. Polynesian navigators lived for this moment, when their skills stars, swells, birds, reefs converged to reveal a new island. Mainstream history confirms that wayfinders discovered and settled thousands of Pacific islands, from Tahiti to Rapa Nui, often spotting land after weeks at sea. You're standing on the platform, shielding your eyes from the sun, and the atoll's clearer now, a low ring of coral fringed with palms, its lagoon sparkling like a turquoise mirror. The wayfinder calls it out, naming it in a chant that weaves stars and ancestors, and you realize it's the payoff for every lesson you've stumbled through. You spot a tern overhead, one of those birds you tracked yesterday, and grin. It's like the seas saying, "Told you so." You shift, the platform creaking, and grip a rope those coconut fiber ones you twisted are still holding. Thank goodness. The crew's buzzing, paddles dipping faster, their voices lifting in a soft chant. The wayfinder's teaching you to approach land carefully, watching for reefs that could gut the canoe. You remember the turquoise patches you dodged yesterday, their coral teeth lurking, and scan the water, spotting a faint shimmer. You call it out, and the wayfinder's sister, steering the second hull, adjusts, her braid swaying. You feel a spark of pride. You're not just the rookie who bails water anymore. You're helping land this thing. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some crews believed the first land sighting was a gift from Hina, the moon goddess, who'd light the way home. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual or just poetic relief, but you're thanking Hina anyway, just in case. The atoll's growing, its palms sharper against the sky. You learn that Polynesians approached islands by XP poly pocket-sized harbors, using wave breaks and fish schools to navigate. You spot a school of fish now, their silver flashes signaling safe passage and call it out. The wayfinder nods, steering wide, and you feel like you've just aced a final exam. You think of the star paths you memorized: Arcturus, Procyon, that ultra-lazy loading system. You're still gliding across the Pacific, the double-hulled canoe slicing through the waves, its pandanus sails catching the breeze like a dream. Your bark cloth wrap is a salty, crusty mess, and you're pretty sure you smell like a mix of taro paste and sea spray, but you're too excited to care. The provisions, those taro baskets and coconuts you packed, are still secure, and even the chicken's clucking has chilled out, like it knows something big is coming. You're standing on the platform, heart pounding, because there it is, a smudge of green on the horizon, an atoll that proves all those star paths swells, and seabirds weren't just pulling your leg. The wayfinder's calm, his eyes glinting with quiet triumph. But you're buzzing, barely keeping it together as you realize you're about to set foot on land. You rub your rope-twisted hands, sore but proud, and feel like you've just won the Pacific lottery. Land, sweet land, is finally here. Polynesian navigators were the rock stars of exploration, spotting and settling thousands of islands across the Pacific, from Tahiti to Rapa Nui, often after weeks of nothing but water and hope. You're staring at the atoll now, its coral ring fringed with swaying palms, the lagoon inside sparkling like it's been polished by the gods. The wayfinder's chanting its name, weaving stars and ancestors into a song that feels like a victory lap for every lesson you've fumbled through: star paths, wave patterns, bird flights, reef dodging. You spot a tern overhead, one of those you tracked like a hawk yesterday, and grin. It's like the sea's winking at you, saying, "Nice job, rookie." You're not just the kid who bailed water anymore. You're part of this, and it's sinking in. You shift on the platform, the wood creaking under your weight, and grip a coconut fiber rope, those ones you twisted until your palms screamed are still holding strong. Thank Tangaroa. The crew's alive with energy, paddles hitting the water in sync, their voices rising in a chant that's half prayer, half celebration. The Wayfinder's teaching you how to approach the atoll without kissing a reef, which could turn your canoe into driftwood faster than you can say oops. You remember those turquoise patches you skirted? Their coral claws ready to snag? And scan the water, spotting a shimmery patch that screams trouble. You call it out, your voice steadier than you feel, and the Wayfinder's sister, steering the second hull, tweaks the paddle, her braid bouncing like it's in on the excitement. You're helping land this beast, and it's a rush. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews thought the first glimpse of land was a high five from Hina, the moon goddess, lighting the path home. Historians still bicker over whether this was spiritual mojo or just sailors hyping themselves up. But you're mentally blowing Hina a kiss, just in case. The atoll's sharper now, its palms standing tall like they're waiting to greet you. You learn Polynesians navigated these pint-sized harbors by reading wave breaks and fish schools, not fancy tech. You spot a school of fish, their silver flashes screaming safe zone, and call it out. The Wayfinder nods, steering wide, and you feel like you just nailed a pop quiz. Those star paths you crammed Arcturus, Praxion, that sneaky dim one are paying off, and you're not lost in the Pacific's deep end. The crew's chanting louder, a rhythm that's got your heart thumping. You join in, your voice wobbly but all in, feeling the vibe of centuries of voyagers who've done this dance. You're sweating, the sun's high, and you're pretty sure you look like a salty scarecrow, but who cares? You grab a piece of dried fish, its tang snapping you awake, and check the water gourds. Those coconuts you cracked are your MVP, and you're not letting them roll overboard. The Wayfinder's sister tosses you a kava gourd, and you sip, wincing at the bitter kick but soaking in the calm. It's like a liquid pep talk, and you're here for it. You're watching the water again, spotting another shimmer reef alert. You call it, the Wayfinder adjusts, and the canoe glides past like it's showing off. You're thinking about the Wayfinder's genius, turning the sea's traps into treasure maps. Modern sailors would be crying without their sonar, but Polynesians, they had eyes, guts, and a canoe that laughed at danger. You're learning to trust your instincts, to see the ocean as a story, not a bully. The atoll's close now. Its lagoon so clear you can see fish darting like they're late for a meeting. You spot a wave break, small but sassy, and call it out. Another dodge, another win. The crew's a machine. Paddles flashing, voices soaring. You learn landing was a team sport, with everyone from the Wayfinder to the water bailer. Yep, that's you pulling weight. You're on lookout, eyes stinging from the glare, but you're locked in. Spotting a fish school that says park here. The Wayfinder's pointing at a cloud, a wispy streak that might anchor to the atoll. You squint, seeing zilch, and wonder if he's got X-ray vision. You're starting to trust the signs, even if you're still the rookie who trips over gourds. The canoe's humming, the swell's your wingman, the atoll your finish line. You call out another reef, its shadow lurking like a grumpy bouncer, and the Wayfinder steers clear. You're buzzing, feeling like you're not just along for the ride, you're driving it. The lagoon's opening up, a turquoise hug waiting to welcome you. You think of the prayers you chanted to Tangaroa, tossing that tie leaf into the waves, and hope he's got your back. The Wayfinder's chant shifts, a welcome to the atoll's spirits, and you join in, your voice blending with the sea's hiss. It's magic, like the canoes dancing with the island. You're not a Wayfinder yet, but you're landing one, and it's epic. The shore's close, sand gleaming like it's been swept for you. You spot a palm leaning over the water, its fronds waving like a high five. The crew's ready, paddles slowing, the canoe easing into the lagoon's embrace. You're holding your breath, the platform steady, those ropes you twisted rock solid. The Wayfinder's smiling, a rare crack in his calm, and you feel like you've earned it. You're not just surviving, you're thriving. And this atoll's your trophy. Joke number one, if you stick this landing, you're not a sailor, you're a Polynesian rock star. You grin, the shore calling, and lean in for the final push. You're easing into the turquoise lagoon of the atoll, the double-hulled canoe gliding over water so clear it's like sailing on glass. The Pandana's sails are slack now, the breeze soft, and the platform beneath you is warm, still creaking from the journey's wear. Your bark cloth wrap is a salty, stiff mess, but you're too thrilled to care lands here. A coral-fringed island with palms swaying like they're throwing you a welcome party. The provisions, those taro baskets and coconuts you packed, are mostly intact, though the chicken's clucking with a smug we made it attitude. You're stepping onto the shore today, meeting islanders who share tales of their own voyages, and the air's thick with the scent of frangipani and the buzz of new faces. The wayfinder's calm, his paddle stowed, while you're trying not to trip over your own feet in excitement. Polynesian islands were hubs of connection, where voyagers exchanged stories, goods, and knowledge, knitting the Pacific into a cultural tapestry. Mainstream history confirms that Polynesian communities, from Tahiti to the Marquesas, were linked by regular voyages, with islanders greeting newcomers as kin rather than strangers. You're wading ashore now, the sand hot under your feet, and a small crowd's gathered men with tattoos curling up their arms. Women in woven skirts, kids darting like overexcited fish. They're chanting a welcome, their voices weaving with the waves' hiss, and you're struck by the warmth, like you've stumbled into a family reunion. You try to chant back, but your words come out like a nervous hiccup-smooth apprentice. You shift, brushing sand off your hands, and follow the wayfinder toward a palm-thatched hut. The islanders offer you a coconut, its water sweet and cool, and you gulp it down, feeling human again. They're curious, asking about your voyage stars. Storms. That squall you bailed through like a soggy hero. You tell them about the frigate birds you tracked, their red pouches like beacons, and they nod, sharing a tale of a bird that led their crew through fog. Here's a quirky tidbit: some islanders believed visitors brought manna, a spiritual energy that blessed the land. Historians still argue whether this was a cultural belief or a way to hype up trade, but you're feeling pretty powerful as a kid hands you a woven lei. Guess you're mana material now. The wayfinders chatting with an elder, their voices low, swapping star paths like it's casual gossip. You learn that Polynesians shared navigation tricks across islands, refining their art through centuries of meetups like this. You're sitting cross-legged on a mat, nibbling breadfruit roasted over a fire, its starchy warmth a million times better than taro paste. The elder's describing a voyage to an island where the stars danced, and you're hooked. Picturing a cosmic disco, you think of the star paths you memorized: Arcturus, Procyon, that dim one you finally nailed, and feel a flicker of pride. You're not just the rookie who splashed paddle water anymore, you're part of this network. You're offered a kava bowl, its bitter tang familiar now, and sip, grimacing but smiling. The islanders laugh, saying kava binds people like the sea binds islands. You learn that these gatherings weren't just social, they were strategic, with crews trading plants, tools, even marriage partners to strengthen ties. You glance at a girl weaving a mat, her hands quick, and wonder if she's sizing you up relax. You're not ready for a Pacific wedding. Joke number one: if you get roped into a betrothal, you're not sailing, you're just collecting in-laws. You grin, but the wayfinder's sister, sitting nearby, gives you a look that says, "Don't embarrass us." The kids are tugging you toward the lagoon, showing off their fishing nets, woven like the ones you packed. You share a trick you learned about spotting fish schools, and they're impressed, calling you starfish guy. You're blushing, but it feels good to contribute, even if you're still the guy who tripped over a gourd. You learn that islanders taught their kids navigation early, using games to memorize stars. You picture your village back home, the kids chasing crabs, and feel a pang of homesickness. But this atoll's home now, at least for today, and you're soaking it in. The elder's telling another story about a wayfinder who sailed blind, using only swells and winds. You think of the current tongues you felt, their warmth guiding you, and nod you're not there yet. But you get it. The wayfinder's sharing your voyage's tale, mentioning the storm you survived, And the islanders murmur, impressed. You're shy but proud, remembering the ropes you twisted, the reefs you dodged. You learn that these stories were currency, binding islands through shared triumphs. You picture modern sailors posting on X about their trips, and chuckle Polynesians didn't need social media. They had campfires and kava, the sun's dipping, the lagoon glowing gold. You're learning island chants now, your voice blending with the kids. It's not the prayer to Tangaroa you chanted, but a welcome song, rhythmic and warm. You're sweating, the fire crackling, and you're pretty sure you look like a salty tourist. But you're all in. Joke number 2 if you mess up the chant. You're not bonding, you're just butchering karaoke. You laugh, but the elder's kind smile keeps you going. The wayfinder's sister passes you another coconut, and you drink, the sweetness grounding you. You're starting to love this place, its people, its stories. You're back by the hut, the stars emerging, the wayfinder's pointing at Sirius, sharing its name with the elder, and you join in, naming it too. You're part of the conversation now, not just the apprentice who bails water. You learn that islanders traded star names, syncing their maps across the Pacific. You think of the birds you tracked, the swells you read, and feel connected to this vast web. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're sharing their world, and it's humbling. The night's deepening, the air cool. You pull your wrap tighter, sand gritty on your skin. The crew's voices are a soft hum, blending with the waves. You're ready for the next story, the next chant, the next step. Joke number 3 if you survive this. You're not a sailor, you're a Polynesian storyteller. You smile, the fire glowing, and lean into the moment. You're still on the atoll, the lagoon's turquoise glow fading into dusk as the stars begin to peek out. Like old friends checking in. The double-hulled canoe's tethered in the shallows, its pandanus sails furled, and the platform's empty now. The provisions, those taro baskets and coconuts you packed, mostly unloaded for trading and feasting. Your bark cloth wrap is still a salty, crusty disaster, but you're too busy to care, kneeling beside the canoe with a pile of coconut fiber ropes and a bone adze. You're repairing the hulls and lashings today, patching up the wear from storms and reefs, and the air's thick with the scent of wood shavings and roasted breadfruit from last night's gathering. The wayfinder's inspecting the canoe, his hands tracing the hulls you carved, while you're trying not to stab yourself with the adze again. The islanders are nearby, their chatter blending with the wave's hum, and you're feeling like a proper shipwright, even if you're still the rookie who trips over gourds. Polynesian navigators were as skilled at maintaining their canoes as they were at steering them, ensuring vessels survived the Pacific's relentless grind. Mainstream history confirms that double-hulled canoes were repaired mid-voyage or on islands, with crews using traditional tools and materials to mend hulls and lashings. You're scraping a gouge in the breadfruit wood hull, the adze's blade biting smoothly, and you're proud to see the canoe looking sharp again. The wayfinder points out a loose lashing, one of those coconut fiber ropes you twisted back on the Marquesan beach, and you wince your handiworks on trial. You grab a new rope, twisting it tight, and feel the calluses you earned all over again. The hulls are holding strong. Those ropes you cursed still doing their job, and you're starting to trust your craft. You shift, sand sticking to your knees, and wipe sweat from your brow. The crew's working around you some planing wood, others weaving fresh pandanus mats to replace the storm-torn ones. The wayfinder's sister is relashing a crossbeam, her hands quick and sure, and you're trying to mimic her knots, though yours look like a toddler's shoelaces. She smirks but shows you the trick, and you manage a decent knot, earning a nod. Here's a quirky tidbit: some crews believed canoes had spirits, and repairs were like healing a living thing, complete with chants to honor the wood. Historians still argue whether this was spiritual or just a morale booster, but you're chanting softly as you work, just in case the last thing you need is a grumpy canoe spirit. The wayfinder's teaching you to check the hull's song, how they hum when tapped, revealing cracks or weak spots. You tap one, the wood ringing clear, and feel like a doctor with a stethoscope, except your patient's a boat, and you're barely qualified. You find a small crack, likely from that squall you bailed through, and patch it with a wooden plug, sealing it with sap. You think of the reefs you dodged, their coral claws so close, and shiver, this canoe's been through it. You learn that Polynesians carried repair kits, adzes, cordage, even spare planks, making their canoes floating workshops. You picture modern sailors, panicking without a hardware store, and chuckle Polynesians didn't need a toolbox. They had ingenuity and a knife. You're relashing now, your fingers raw but steady. The Wayfinder's telling a story about a voyage where a crew rebuilt half their canoe mid-sea, using driftwood and vines. You're hooked, imagining yourself as a sea carpenter, though you're still struggling with basic knots. You think of the star paths you memorized: Arcturus, Procyon, that dim one you nailed, and how they led you here, to this atoll's shore. You're not just fixing a boat, you're prepping for the next journey. And it's humbling. You glance at the lagoon, its water calm, and feel a pang of gratitude for the islanders' welcome. Their stories still ringing in your ears from last night's fire. The crew's chanting a work song, their voices syncing with the adze's rhythmic scrape. And you join in, your voice wobbly but earnest. It's not the prayer to Tangaroa you chanted, but a rhythm to keep your hands moving. You're sweating, the sun high, and you're pretty sure you look like a sandy scarecrow. But you're in the zone. Joke number one: if you mess up this repair, you're not a shipwright, you're just sculpting driftwood art. You grin. But the Wayfinder's sister's focus keeps you on track. She passes you a coconut, it's water sweet, and you drink, the coolness grounding you. You're starting to love this work, even if your hands beg to differ. You're patching another gouge now, the adze feeling like an extension of your arm. You learn that repairs weren't just practical, they were rituals, strengthening the crew's bond with the canoe. You think of the manna the islanders said you brought, that spiritual spark, and wonder if it's helping your knots hold. The Wayfinder's inspecting your work, his nod a rare win, and you feel like you've leveled up. You're not just the rookie who bailed water or tripped over gourds, you're rebuilding the canoe that carried you across the Pacific. You glance at the provisions, the taro and fish traded with the islanders, and feel connected to the journey's web. The day's warming, the air thick with salt and wood. You pull your wrap tighter, sand gritty on your skin. The crew's voices are a soft hum, blending with the wave's lap. You learn that repairs were a team effort, with everyone from the Wayfinder to the water bailer pitching in. You're on knot duty now, your fingers aching but precise. And you're proud when a lashing holds tight. The Wayfinder's pointing at a star, Sirius peeking out early, and you name it. Feeling like you're still navigating, even on land. You think of the birds you tracked, the reefs you dodged, and feel the Wayfinder's genius in every rope you tie. You're finishing a patch, the hull smooth under your palm. The Wayfinder's telling another story about a canoe that survived a typhoon thanks to a single well-tied knot. You're inspired, double-checking your lashings, and hope yours are typhoon-proof. The sea's calm, but you're ready for its next trick. You glance at the lagoon, the canoe bobbing gently, and feel a mix of awe and readiness. You're repairing. Really repairing. And the next voyage is calling. You're not a Wayfinder yet, but you're keeping their art alive. Joke number two: if you survive this, you're not a sailor. You're a Polynesian canoe therapist. You smile, the sun setting, and keep your hands on the wood. You're still on the atoll. The lagoon's calm waters reflecting a sky now dusted with early stars. Their familiar glow a reminder of the paths you've sailed. The double-hulled canoe rests in the shallows, its hulls freshly patched from your repair work, the coconut fiber ropes you retied gleaming in the twilight. Your bark cloth wrap is still a salty, sandy wreck, but you're too focused to care. Sitting cross-legged on a woven mat with a group of islander kids, their eyes wide as you share the art of wayfinding. The air's warm, scented with hibiscus and the faint smoke of a nearby fire, and the village hums with evening chatter. The Wayfinder's nearby, swapping stories with an elder, while you're trying to teach star paths without sounding like a nervous intern tough when your audience is a pack of giggling tweens. Polynesian navigation was a living tradition, passed down through generations via oral lessons and hands-on practice, ensuring every island had its wayfinders. Mainstream history confirms that children learned navigation early, often through games and chants that made stars and swells second nature. You're pointing at Sirius now, its bright wink low on the horizon, and explaining how it guides to Fiji. The kids repeat its name. Their voice is a mix of awe and mischief, and one boy mimics your accent, cheeky. You laugh, but keep going, describing how Arcturus points to Hawaii, just like you learned back on the Marquesan beach. You're not just the rookie who bailed water anymore, you're a teacher, and it's both thrilling and terrifying. You shift on the mat, sand gritty under your thighs, and draw a star path in the dirt with a stick. The kids lean in, tracing it with their fingers, and you feel a spark of pride you're passing on the same knowledge that got you to this atoll. You tell them about the frigate birds you tracked, their red pouches like flags, and how they led you here. The kids gasp, one girl saying her brother saw a bird save a lost canoe. Here's a quirky tidbit: some islanders taught kids navigation using star sticks, carved twigs arranged to mimic constellations. Historians still argue whether these were common or just a teaching fad, but you're tempted to carve one, if only to keep the kids from doodling crabs in the dirt. The Wayfinder's lessons are fresh in your mind, and you're channeling his calm, though your voice wavers when a kid asks about storms. You share how you bailed through that squall, the canoe rocking like a cranky toddler, and they're hooked, begging for details. You describe the coconut fiber ropes you twisted, how they held against the waves, and the kids touch their own woven bracelets, nodding. You learn that Polynesians use storytelling to teach, embedding navigation in tales of heroes and gods. You try a story about a wayfinder who followed a dancing star, and the kids eat it up, though one boy calls it corny. Fair. But you're still proud? You're teaching them a chant now, the one for Tahiti's star path. Arcturus. Procyon? That dim one you finally nailed. They stumble over the names, giggling, and you join in, your voice blending with theirs. It's not the prayer to Tangaroa you chanted, but a rhythm to lock the stars in their heads. You're sweating, the firelight flickering, and you're pretty sure you look like a sandy sage. But you're in the zone. Joke number one if you mess up this chant: you're not teaching. You're just leading a star karaoke disaster. You grin, but the kid's focus keeps you on track. The Wayfinder's sister, sitting nearby, passes you a coconut, it's water sweet, and you drink. The coolness grounding you. You're back to the star path. Drawing Vega's arc in the dirt, you learn that kids were tested young, sent on short sails to prove their skills. You picture these tweens paddling a canoe and shudder you're barely trusted with a paddle yourself. You share how you felt current tongues, their warmth guiding you. And the kids are fascinated. One girl saying she felt a current while fishing. You're connecting, not just teaching, and it feels like you're weaving the Pacific's web tighter. You think of the islanders' stories from the feast, their mana welcoming you, and hope you're adding a spark of your own. The night's deepening, the air cooler. You pull your wrap tighter, sand flaking off. The kids are chanting louder, getting the star path right, and you clap, feeling like a proud coach. You learn that teaching was a duty, ensuring no island lost its wayfinders. You picture modern teachers drowning in paperwork, and chuckle Polynesians didn't need grades. They had stars and stories. You're pointing at Sirius again, sharing how you tracked it at sea, and the kids name it. Their voice is strong. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you're passing on their art, and it's humbling. The wayfinder's watching now, his nod a rare win, and you feel like you've leveled up. You tell the kids about the reefs you dodged, the canoe's hulls holding strong, and they're wide-eyed, asking if you were scared. You admit you were, and they respect the honesty, sharing their own fears of the sea. You're building trust, not just teaching facts. You glance at the canoe, its silhouette sharp against the lagoon, and feel a pang of pride those repairs you made are ready for the next sale. The kids are begging for another story, and you oblige, spinning a tale about a turn that outsmarted a storm. They love it, and you're starting to love this role. The fire's dying, the village quieting. You're wrapping up, the kids yawning but still chanting. You learn that these lessons were often at night, under the stars, to make the sky real. You think of the swells you read, the birds you tracked, and feel connected to this tradition. You're not just sharing knowledge, you're keeping it alive. You stand, stretching your stiff legs, and the kids hug you, their lace scratchy but warm. You're ready for the next lesson, the next story, the next step. Joke number 2. If you survive this, you're not a sailor, you're a Polynesian preschool legend. You smile, the stars bright, and wave as the kids scamper off. You're still on the atoll, the night air cool and fragrant with hibiscus. The lagoon's gentle lap blending with the soft hum of the village winding down. The double-hulled canoe rests in the shallows, its repaired hulls gleaming under starlight. Ready for the next voyage. Your barkcloth wrap is a gritty, salty relic, but you're too caught up to care. Sitting on a woven mat by a dying fire, surrounded by islanders and your crew, the wayfinder's beside you, his voice weaving tales of past voyages, and you're reflecting on Polynesia's vast, star-carved empire, a network of islands bound by canoes, courage, and cosmic know-how. The provisions, those taro baskets and coconuts you packed, are mostly traded or eaten, and the chickens clucking is now a distant memory, probably living its best life with some island kid. You're marveling at the Pacific's web, your hands still sore from repairs, and feeling like you're part of something bigger than any one shore. Polynesia's maritime empire was a cultural and navigational marvel, connecting thousands of islands across millions of square miles through shared knowledge and voyages. Mainstream history confirms that by 1200 CE, Polynesians had settled the Polynesian Triangle Hawaii, Rapa Nui, Aotearoa, using canoes like the one you helped build to stitch together a civilization. You're listening to the Wayfinder now, his story about a voyage to a distant island where the stars sang, and you're hooked, picturing a sky alive with music. You think of the star paths you memorized: Arcturus, Procyon, that dim one you finally got, and how they guided you here, to this atoll's firelit circle. You're not just the rookie who bailed water, you're a thread in this vast tapestry. You shift on the mat, sand gritty under your thighs, and sip from a coconut. Its water sweet against the kava's bitter aftertaste from last night's lesson with the kids. The islanders are sharing their own tales of wayfinders who found hidden atolls, of storms that tested entire crews. One woman describes a voyage where birds led her people to this very lagoon, and you nod, remembering the frigate birds you tracked, their red pouches like flags. Here's a quirky tidbit. Some Polynesians believed the ocean itself was a storyteller, its currents carrying memories of every voyage. Historians still argue whether this was myth or a poetic take on navigation, but you're feeling it now. The sea's whispers tying you to every sailor who's crossed these waters. The Wayfinder's story shifts to the Great Migration, when Polynesians spread across the Pacific, carrying plants, animals, and chants to new homes. You think of the taro shoots you packed, now planted in this atoll's soil, and feel a spark of pride you're part of that legacy. You learn that this empire wasn't built on conquest but on connection, with islands trading stories, tools, and even star names to keep the network strong. You picture modern empires, with their borders and bureaucracy, and chuckle Polynesians didn't need flags, they had canoes and a sky full of directions. You're sharing your own story now. The squall you survived, how the canoe's hulls, those you carved, held against the waves. The islanders lean in, impressed, and you're shy but proud, mentioning the ropes you twisted, the reefs you dodged. You learn that storytelling was Polynesia's glue, binding islands through shared triumphs and lessons. The Wayfinder's sister, sitting across the fire, adds how you taught the kids star paths, and the islanders smile, saying you've got mana, that spiritual spark. You blush, but it feels good, like you're not just a visitor but a link in the chain. The fire crackles, casting shadows on the sand. You're learning that Polynesia's empire was fluid, its borders drawn by currents and stars, not walls. You think of the prayers you chanted to Tangaroa, tossing that tide leaf into the waves, and how they connected you to this moment. The Wayfinder's describing a voyage where two islands traded navigators, blending their star paths into a new map. You're awed, imagining the Pacific as a living library, every island a chapter. You join in, naming Sirius, and the islanders nod, recognizing it from their own chants. You're not just sharing facts, you're weaving the web tighter. The night's deepening, the air cooler. You pull your wrap tighter, sand flaking off. The crew's voices are a soft hum, blending with the islanders. You learn that this empire thrived on trust in wayfinders, canoes, the sea itself. You picture the kids you taught, chanting star paths, and hope they'll sail one day, keeping the tradition alive. You're sweating, the fire's warmth lingering, and you're pretty sure you look like a sandy sage, but you're all in. Joke number one, if you mess up this story, you're not bonding, you're just rewriting Polynesian fan fiction. You grin. But the Wayfinder's calm keeps you grounded. You're listening to an elder now, her voice soft but commanding, telling of a time when Wayfinders linked islands so far apart they seemed like different worlds. You think of the birds you tracked, the swells you read, and how they led you here, to this fire, this family. You learn that Polynesians didn't just navigate, they dreamed. Their voyages chasing visions of new homes. You picture modern explorers tethered to tech. And smile Polynesians had stars, stories, and sheer guts. You're starting to see the Pacific not as empty but as alive. A highway of hope and memory. The Wayfinders pointing at the sky, naming Vega. And you join in. Your voice stronger now. You're not a Wayfinder yet, but you're carrying their legacy, sharing their world. The islanders offer you a roasted breadfruit, its starchy warmth grounding you. And you eat, savoring the moment. You think of the canoe, its hulls ready for the next sail, and feel a mix of awe and readiness. You're part of this empire, not just a visitor, but a storyteller, a link in the chain. You're ready for the next tale, the next star, the next step. Joke number two, if you survive this. You're not a sailor, you're a Polynesian history nerd. You smile, the fire glowing, and lean into the night. You're back on the atoll. The night air soft and heavy with the scent of salt and blooming frangipani. The lagoon's gentle ripples whispering against the shore. The double-hulled canoe rests quietly in the shallows, its hulls gleaming under a sky bursting with stars. Arcturus, Sirius, and that dim one you finally memorized, all watching over you like proud teachers. Your bark cloth wrap is a sandy, salty relic. But you're too content to care, lying on a woven mat by the water's edge. The fire from last night's storytelling now just embers. The provisions are mostly gone, traded or eaten, and the chicken's probably off ruling some island coop. You're drifting to sleep tonight, lulled by the waves in the ancient skies, reflecting on the journey that brought you here. Stars, storms, reefs, and all. The Wayfinder's nearby, his silhouette calm against the starlight, and you're ready to let the Pacific's rhythm carry you into dreams. Polynesian navigators knew how to rest as well as they sailed, using quiet moments to recharge under the same stars that guided them. Mainstream history confirms that after long voyages, crews would pause on islands like this, letting the sea's rhythm and the sky's beauty soothe their spirits. You're stretched out now, the mat's weave cradling your tired body, and the wave's soft lap feels like a lullaby written just for you. You think of the star paths you learned, how Arcturus led you across the ocean, and smile, you're not just the rookie who bailed water anymore. You're a sailor, a storyteller, a piece of Polynesia's vast puzzle. The sky above is a tapestry, each star a story, and you're sinking into its calm. You shift. Sand cool against your skin, and pull your wrap closer. Its salt crust a badge of your journey, The wayfinders humming a chant, low and steady, the same one you sang with the kids when you taught them star paths. You join in, your voice barely a whisper, naming Sirius, Vega, Procyon, letting their names weave into the night. Here's a quirky tidbit: some Polynesians believed sleeping under the stars invited dreams from the ancestors, who'd share secrets of the sea. Historians still argue whether these dreams were divine or just exhaustion's tricks, but you're hoping for a visit from a wise old wayfinder, maybe with tips on dodging reefs. You chuckle softly, the sound swallowed by the waves. The lagoon's glow is fading, the stars brighter now, their light dancing on the water like tiny mirrors. You think of the frigate birds you tracked, their red pouches pointing to this atoll, and the swells you read, their pulse guiding you through storms. You're proud of the canoe you helped build, those coconut fiber ropes you twisted holding strong, and the stories you shared with the islanders, their mana warming you still. You learned that rest was sacred, a time to honor the sea's gifts. Calm waters, clear skies, safe shores. You picture modern travelers, glued to their screens, and smile. Polynesians didn't need apps. They had the sky, the sea, and a mat to dream on. You're drifting deeper. The wayfinders chant a steady hum, like a heartbeat syncing with the waves. You think of the prayers you chanted to Tangaroa, tossing that tide leaf into the waves, and how they carried you here, to this moment of peace. You're not a wayfinder yet, but you've sailed their paths, faced their storms, and landed on their shores. The mat's soft, the air cool, and you're letting go. The stars above a blanket of light. You're sweating less. The night's breeze gentle, and you're pretty sure you look like a sandy wanderer, but you're home in this moment, cradled by the Pacific's rhythm. The wayfinder's voice fades. The village silent now. You learn that Polynesians saw sleep as a journey, a voyage into the spirit world where stars and ancestors met. You're sinking into that world. The waves lap a guide. The stars your map. You think of the kids you taught, their chants echoing in your mind, and hope they'll sail one day, keeping the web alive. You're ready to dream, to let the sea carry you wherever it wants. You're not just resting, you're sailing into sleep. The Pacific stories wrapping around you like a warm tide. The night's deep, the stars endless. You're drifting. The mat your canoe, the waves your wind. You feel the journey in your bones, the stars you named, the reefs you dodged, the stories you told, and know you're part of something vast, something timeless. You're not a wayfinder, but you've walked their path, and it's enough. You let go, the waves' rhythm fading, the stars softening, and slip into dreams. The Pacific holding you close. Now, let the waves carry you deeper. Their soft lap a gentle nudge towards sleep. The stars above are dimming, their light a warm whisper, tucking you into the night's embrace. You're safe here, on this atoll. The sand cool, the air soft, the Pacific's rhythm a lullaby that's been sung for centuries. Every swell, every star, every story you've lived is part of you now. A quiet strength that lingers. The canoe rests, the wayfinder dreams, and you're free to drift. No storms to face, no reefs to dodge. Feel your breath slow, your body sink, the mat cradling you like the sea itself. The night is kind, the stars forgiving, and sleep is just a tide away. Let it take you, let it hold you, and rest in the Pacific's ancient calm. Sweet dreams.